Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. For our first, then, part of our opening ceremony, we'll have an invocation. We are honored to have Marcus Mays, who's the chaplain of Kalamazoo Metro Transit, here to provide the invocation. And what I'm going to ask is that for all of us to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, City Council. Appreciate the fact that you've allowed me to come again. Heavenly Father, our God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a God of love who's with us in this very room. You never leave us or forsake us. Your grace has brought us safe through thus far, and your grace will continue to lead. We thank you for making each of us in this room, every person we meet, every citizen of this city, and every city in your image with dignity and infinite worth. We thank you for the calling you have given each and every one of us to be good stewards over your creation, to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. I thank you tonight, God, for your servants, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff, our city council members. I give thanks for the way of service that they have chosen to take up on behalf of all of us here. We all come to this room tonight as complex human beings, carrying burdens, carrying joy and hope, trusting that you alone can hold us together in your love and peace. Help us, Lord, to trust you more than our fears and our wounds and even our accomplishments. May we lean on may we lean on your everlasting arms tonight. God, in your word, you made clear your expectations for those who sit in places of authority. In Psalm 72, we heard a prayer for the king. Endow the king with your justice, O God, the royal son with your righteousness. May he judge your people in righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice. May he defend the afflicted among the people and save the children of the needy. May he crush the oppressor. For the king will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from oppression and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight. Through the prophet Jeremiah, in chapter 22, you remind us that your blessing come on kings who defend the rights of the poor and needy, because isn't that what it means to me, declares the Lord? We remember the Apostle Paul writing to the Christians in Rome and his teaching that those in authority are first and foremost your servants, that honor you and doing your will is their highest purpose, that any portion of power they enjoy is given by you and can be taken away. And so we pray that you would be glorified tonight through the decisions of the City Council. We pray that we would have the eyes to see how our lives are connected and how our common good is upheld when we listen and respond to those most vulnerable among us. We pray that your kingdom would come in the city of Kalamazoo as it is in heaven through your power working in each of these your servants. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, O God, through this governing body tonight. We pray for wisdom, for strength, for courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interests of those above, let me put the interests of others above our own. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person here. We thank you again for this council, the mayor, the city staff, those who are first responders and law enforcement in any branch of service to this community. All those who work to make this place we call home such a wonderful city. In the name of Jesus Christ, whose name is most holy, whose perfect love sets us free from all our fears, amen and amen again.
Chaplain, I want to thank you very much for coming here and taking time to share some very thoughtful words with us. I appreciate that. Helps get us off on the right foot here. We do have a special guest with us this evening. My wonderful eldest daughter, Anessa, is here, all the way from California. And she has the patience somehow to not only when she comes to visit me actually come to see a city commission meeting, but she's one of the few people I know that actually watches the city commission meetings and provides some real-time commentary for me after each meeting, and that's very helpful. I would say that even in my extended family, this is a singular responsibility that my eldest daughter carries. So thank you, Vanessa. Nice to have you here. We do have a proclamation for something that's great that happens here in Kalamazoo, and I've just been, I have to say, worried when it rains so much. Will people decide, it seems like this has happened sometimes in the past, maybe I'm overly conscious about it, but it makes me worried that people will somehow have second thoughts about coming to Kalamazoo to do this, and I hope that's not the case, but we have a special proclamation for the USTA Boys 18 and 16 National Championships, and that's going to be read by Commissioner Hess. I'm going to take the proclamation down, and if those who are here to accept it could come forward here to the podium.
So, Mayor, thank you for allowing me to read this. Having spent my career, 35 of those 80 years at Kalamazoo College, I know that this is a labor of love on behalf of a lot of people at the college, and I'm grateful for everything they bring to the city, all of the people that come to visit from all over the country, and I am just honored to share this proclamation. Welcoming the United States Tennis Association's Boys 18 and 16 National Championships, August 4th through 13th, 2023. Whereas, this year will be the 80th year Kalamazoo College and the City of Kalamazoo have hosted the United States Tennis Association Boys 18 and 16 National Championships, and whereas, more than 400 of the nation's best young male tennis players will compete in the 10-day tournament from August 4th to August 13th, 2023 at Stowe Tennis Stadium on the campus of Kalamazoo College, and whereas such tennis greats as Arthur Ashe, Jimmy Connors, Stan Smith, Andre Agassi, Jim Courier, Pete Sampras, Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul, and Francis Tiafoe played in Kalamazoo as juniors, and whereas the United States Tennis Association Boys 18 and 16 National Championships brings national recognition and prestige to Kalamazoo College and the City of Kalamazoo, and whereas the United States Tennis Association Boys 18 and 16 National Championships continue to have a significant impact on the local economy and cultural vitality, bringing parents, coaches, celebrities, and media from throughout the United States to Kalamazoo, and whereas at the end of the 10-day tournament, 6 young men will leave the International Tennis City as new United States Tennis Association Boys 18 and 16 national champions in singles and doubles. Now, therefore, I, Jean Hess, on behalf of David Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, and on behalf of the Kalamazoo 54th City Commission, do hereby proclaim August 4th through 13th, 2023, as the 80th year of the United States Tennis Association Boys 18 and 16 National Championships in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We welcome and congratulate the players, parents, coaches, and sponsors for their participation in this event. Congratulations, Coach Ryan.
Commissioner Hess. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hess. Thank you, Commission. My name is Emily Fink-Craig, Assistant Tournament Director of the Boys Nationals. We are on, and this is Director Mark Riley, Tournament Director Mark Riley. We are honored to be here and to celebrate 80 years in Kalamazoo. That is truly a feat that has not been seen before in junior tennis. The tournament was only brought to us during the start of World War II. When it was brought from Culver Air Fort Base in Indiana. On a whim, Kalamazoo, Michigan sounded like a great idea, and it has stuck, and the gnats at the zoo are here to stay, and we need everyone's help to ensure that we are here for 80 more years. Thank you again, and Mark's going to make a couple remarks.
I'd like to thank everybody in our city. So many people are surprised how great a city we get to live in, and I appreciate all the hard work that all of our people in the city are making it a better place. This is year 17 for me here, and I went to college at K College, so it's a great place, and I'm so happy that year 80's here, and we need to continue to work at this so people to come behind us can make this happen for another 80 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your work. All right. Well, commissioners, we have in front of us the formal agenda. We have 11 items here on the consent agenda. Any commissioners want any agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda? Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes, Mayor. I have two that I would like to move to the regular agenda, and that would be G4
G4
and G6.
and G6. All right. Thank you so much. Anyone else on the commission? So G4 and G6 will be moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Is there anyone in the chambers who would like to move an item from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? All right, seeing no one, the agenda stands as is. Then, Communications Manager Ritzma.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. So now is the opportunity for public comments here at our business meeting. So just a reminder, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city. And then for those, we still are providing the opportunity, which we started during the COVID pandemic and have continued to this point, but you can call in with a public comment. The number is 888-382-9556. I would suggest that you call in, do not wait, call in, and then those calls will be handled after people in the chamber have had an opportunity. So please come forward if you'd like to make a comment.
Good evening. Thanks to all of you for your service. I am John Allen. I live at 3412 Bronson Boulevard. I wish to speak about the item 6 from the consent agenda that was just moved to the regular agenda, I believe, if I got that identified right. It asked you to accept a very large amount of money from the Department of Transportation under the Safe Streets for All grant. It also includes a requirement, pretty well hidden, but in your memo and the contract, that you are required to adopt something called a Vision Zero policy, which is warmly and gently described as a road system that does not allow for human error to have a serious or fatal outcome. We have heard your city engineers at demonstrations and other places say that they will make the streets so safe they will be perfect with no collisions or injuries. And all that sounds very nice. But this money comes with some big strings attached, especially the adoption of that Vision Zero policy. I've given you written comments with fuller citations. I urge you to consult those. Vision Zero is not part of your complete streets policy. It's not part of your streets manual. It's a major change in streets policy and design. It purports to validate the likes of pilots like the ill-fated Winchell Edge Street project. Vision Zero is a creation out of Sweden. It shifts authority, quote, from the people using roads to the people designing them, unquote, with the goal of reducing private vehicles and shifting to, quote, safe public transport, unquote. More bluntly, it will be a policy to put the city engineers permanently in charge of the streets, excluding pro-motorists, with the ultimate goal of virtually eliminating private car travel and making public transport virtually the sole means of feasible year-round transportation. It is a radical policy. It ignores the positive values of private vehicles, especially the freedom and independence they give us to travel where we want, when we want. It is a major change in streets policy. with no public comment or debate, no city voice to the contrary, no inquiry by the commission with a public discussion, no diversity of views or opinions, no transparency or accountability. Turning down that much money is tough, but this proposal and its hidden content deserve a lot more public debate and discussion than they have thus far received. Our beautiful streets are too important to be designed by engineers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the chambers that wants to make a public comment this evening? All right, seeing no one, then we'll move to, this will be your last chance for public comments if you're interested. I see people poised. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. If this is an opportunity to make a public comment, you know, in our public comment period, if you'd like to take advantage of that, but. Yeah, on any topic of your choice.
I'm Jody Dozman. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. And thank you for redoing the Lodge House, the old Knights Inn. It's been great being in some place rather than being homeless. It's got me started in a couple of areas. I'm getting there. I'm not quite there, but anyway, so as far as the bus goes, we need, boy, you put $60 on your bus pass and you crack that card, you lose your whole $60. They need to have a system where, like your Visa card, you can pay for the plastic and change it, but get your money back. There's a way to do that. There's gotta be. And anyway, living at the Lodge House is rather difficult if you're a marijuana smoker. I mean, cigarette butts have been known to kill children, and the chemicals in cigarettes are just outrageous. But in marijuana, it's like one chemical, or the CBDs and the THC, so it's basically the same, but different extracts. And if you're at the Lodge House, you can't even step out to smoke your medical marijuana. There's a lady who has grand mal seizures, and she doesn't have the seizures like she used to because she smokes pot, but if she gets caught, she's homeless. If they even smell an empty jar, she's homeless. So it's, you know, you can't even have your medical there. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention. And as far as the spaceship and as far as the landfill goes, I'm still working on those things. Life starts by God's amazing grace. So just be patient. Something will happen, I'm sure. It's a good idea.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers who wants to make a comment this evening? Seeing no one, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, is anybody called in?
We'll go ahead and check right now. We do not.
Thank you, DCM Chamberlain. I appreciate that. Next is the consent agenda. Manager Ritzma.
We have 11 items, actually 9 now, that 2 were pulled. One is approval of a 1-year contract extension with Big Truck Rental for the rental of Packer trucks in the amount of $133,875. Next is the approval of a contract with Vulcama Construction Incorporated for Water Station Number 5 structural repairs in the amount of $285,552. Next is the adoption of a performance resolution for the City of Kalamazoo to be able to install, access, and maintain its assets on right-of-way owned by the Michigan Department of Transportation. Next is the approval of a 3-year, $100,000 pilot program to incentivize participation in the lead and copper compliance monitoring program via water bill credits not to exceed $33,334 annually. Next is the authorization for the city manager to sign railroad permits for the Porter Street Water Main project. Next is the approval and acceptance of an easement with the city of Parchment for a standby generator being installed as part of the remote station upgrades project. Next is the approval and acceptance of an easement with Kalamazoo Regional Educational Service Agency for water main installed as part of KRESA Career and Technical Education Center project. Next is the approval and acceptance of an easement with Stadium Management Company for the water main installed as part of the KRESA Career Technical Education Center project. And finally, approval of the appointment of Gillian and Stoltman to the Water System Advisory Council for a term expiring on December 31, 2026.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So, Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 3, number 5, and then 7 through 11, and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. Clerk Bowling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes?
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we are on to our regular agenda. First is item H1, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution approving a contract with the Michigan Department of Transportation for the construction of the Westnedge Avenue Water Main, Roadway, and Sanitary Project in the amount of $9,938,534.77. Yes, we're going to have a brief presentation by our Public Services Director, James Baker.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. And welcome, James Baker.
And just so you know, he'll be talking about the next two items too, G2 and G3.
Sounds good. Great to have you here.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners. The action item in front of you tonight is a contract with MDOT for the Westnedge Avenue construction. This is a multidisciplinary transportation core project for us, whereas we're doing heavy utility construction to include water transmission main as well as street reconstruction. The project distance would be from Vine Street to White's Road. This is something that's been in our 5-year transportation plan for a number of years now. This has been supported by CATS, our local transportation planning, metropolitan planning organization. We have received some significant dollars from the state for this project, as well as coordinated dollars from the water fund. That's what pays for the water main. Construction on this project is scheduled to begin in 2024. That's next year, although we must obligate this year, which means the contract would have to get signed, and then there's certain work activities that would have to occur this year. But for the purpose of our experiences, it would be construction occurring in 2024. The cross-section is essentially what it is out there that you see right now. There would be some bike facilities between Vine and Maple Streets, and then south of Maple Streets would have the lane configuration is currently drawn on the pavement. So pretty simple in terms of the work we're doing. It's stuff we do all the time. It's a relatively large dollar amount, but it's a long distance, and it's also very significant work with water main and everything else we're doing. So I'll pause there. If there's any questions or comments or anything, be happy to address them.
Questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Hess.
Thank you, Director Baker. So 2024, it's going to be a big year for roads in Kalamazoo. Do you have a plan for helping drivers understand the need for these projects and for the patients that we're going to need to navigate them throughout the city?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. It's, we built communication into all these projects from not only the neighborhood level, but also we've got our website and landing page that describes this project. So if you go to Imagine Kalamazoo at work, City Kalamazoo, Imagine Kalamazoo, or IK 2025 at work. This is one of the projects that's highlighted. This is one of the projects that we talk about with the community as we all embrace and embark upon this construction, which also has the frustrations of some trip time delays. And so, during that construction, we'll also have communications that will be going out as well to kind of talk about the project and how folks can, continue to manage and deal with the trip time delays that we are experiencing. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners? No? Commissioner Bradel?
This would just be a good education moment for the totality of the project, but this is a heavy lift. This is not just a resurfacing type scenario. So can you just explain, the strategy that we're using where we're in a little bit more depth and substance about how we're trying to tackle it all under the street effectively when the work is being done on these major roads, so that hopefully we're not inconveniencing people as much when a water main breaks or, you finish a road and then something catastrophic happens with infrastructure afterwards.
Correct. This is a plan or a policy, if you will, tied in with asset management, and you saw that on Oakland Drive, on Cork Street, on Parkview Street. You're going to see it with the work that happens downtown. You're seeing it on Ransom right now, where we have needs from a utility perspective to replace old water main that's got age, condition, and break history that are something that we need to address, as well as pavement life cycle that needs to get addressed. So we coordinate, with local utilities to make sure we're delivering projects. It's our goal to deliver, one time on a project and then have, complete infrastructure renewal at that point. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes we do have to dig up a relatively new roadway, but it's our goal to coordinate this work together and deliver single projects.
Thanks, you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other questions for Director Baker? I believe you got more to share at this time. Is that right? Are you going to go on to cover some other items?
I'm good.
When they come up. Great.
When they come
okay.
up, yeah.
All right. Are we set on the questions? Okay. Thank you, Director Baker. Appreciate it. Since there aren't any more questions here, now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. Speakers will each have 3 minutes. Please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city, and comment specific to this particular item. Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Pradel. Discussion, Commissioner Pradel.
I just want to share really quick, this is a big deal what our community has shifted towards and how we do these construction projects. We typically, pave a street and we'd end up having to dig it up right away because something would happen underneath it with the aging infrastructure. This is going to add significant longevity and save, our community a significant amount of money long-term because we're going in one swoop. And even though it's very frustrating and inconvenient in the time that it's happening, it's going to save us from having to deal with that kind of grief years and years and years and many times down the road. So it's great that we're taking that kind of time and attention. I also wanted to just recognize really quick the innovation that Director Baker's team of engineers used. So they're doing lead service line replacements. And on the stretch of Westnedge, there used to be alleyways where a lot of those lead service lines went through, and people built garages and structures underneath or on top of those. So you can imagine how difficult it would be to try to coordinate replacing lead service lines when people have built on top of them since they went in. And so they basically figured out a strategy to kind of bypass that and save the time and money and energy to put them in basically from, was it the front end of the homes, to save money, time, and inconvenience for all those homeowners on that stretch. So just a great example of just kind of some ingenuity and creativity to save time and money. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, I just want to give that just special shout out to Director Baker and his team. I think as Commissioner Pradel, hinted on the projects, and we see a lot of construction happening now, and how frustrating it could be to have to take detours from your normal routes. But also giving up the fact that, you know, these projects are getting done and, you know, we're not going to be damaging our cars, we're going to have better roads. And so it's the give and take from the community. At the same time, the investment we're making now for the future is that's the biggest important aspect for me. That in 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years down the line, when other cities are going to read headline news, infrastructure's failing, we're going to be like, well, thank you, Commissioner Prater, Esto, and Haas, and, you know, Vice Mayor Cooney, and, you know, you guys made these decisions to do this, right? And so I really appreciate the work that they're doing and the work you guys are doing up here.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next item on the regular agenda, H2, City Manager Ritzma.
Approval of a grant agreement from the Environmental Protection Agency in the amount of $1 million for lead service line replacement and authorization of the city manager or designee to sign all related documents. And again, we have Director Baker coming forward for brief comments.
Welcome back, Director Baker.
Thank you, Mayor, City Manager, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners. Just to provide some background, this was an earmark opportunity that the city received from then U.S. Representative Fred Upton. There was some celebration of this work, of getting this grant last year in Lacrone Park, where we accepted that and, you know, plan to move forward. This action tonight is the actual acceptance of the dollars, where then the next phase will be to appropriate that towards the work. So this $1 million will represent approximately 120 lead service line replacements that we'll do over the next year or so. This work will probably occur in 2024. The work focus area is, again, North Kalamazoo. That's an area that's kind of defined roughly from a boundary to the east of the Kalamazoo River, a boundary to the north of Mazel, a boundary to the west of Nichols Road, and a boundary to the south of Main Street, West Main, or Main and Michigan Ave as it moves through downtown. So it's a pretty big project area. A lot of our resources have been focused within this project area as we have come to City Commission multiple times now with multiple contracts and multiple state and federal grants and opportunities to do this great work. So with this will put us over the 20 million mark in terms of federal grants, resources, and lower interest loans together for the city of Kalamazoo. So this is, you know, certainly great work and a great shout out to our utility and a competitive work that everyone's been doing to bring some dollars home to Kalamazoo. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any questions for Director Baker on this grant? All right, seeing none. Now is the opportunity for anybody who's here in the chambers who has a question or wants to comment on this item. Please come forward now. Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve the grant agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess, supported by Commissioner Juarez. All right, thank you. Further discussion, Commissioners? Vice Mayor Cooney.
I would just like to thank former Congressman Upton for taking the initiative on this. I think Congressman Upton and I have very different viewpoints on policy, but he did so much for this community, and this is one example of the great things he did for this community.
I really appreciate you making sure that we noted that, and I think that's important. One of maybe his last acts, but one thing I guess I just want to remind all of us is that for better or for worse, we do have a policy now at the federal level of having a capacity to earmark federal dollars. That was gone for a little while, but it's been back, and that gives a local representative an opportunity to ask people in his or her district what is very important to them, which Representative Upton asked. And so, this is one of the requests that came in. Just as a reminder, for our current representative who does not currently support the idea of earmarks, is that this is the good, solid work you can do with an earmark. So this is a public reminder of that. Commissioners, let me see here. I guess we've already had a motion, so we're ready for Clerk Borley. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Item H3, Manager Richmond.
Approval of 10 new public services FTE water position allocations and an adjustment to the fiscal year 2023 budget in the amount of $225,000.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor, City Manager, Vice Mayor, City Commissioners. Just to provide some background on this item, this really kind of came through with our budget work that we did within the department and within Management Services Office and the City Manager's Office in 2022 for preparation for 2023. This item was kind of held aside, held in abeyance until we could make some rational determinations on rates with a new rate model that was getting put together for water. Unfortunately, we had a turn of events, whereas our sludge contract for wastewater experienced some dramatic price increases, thus requiring us to come to commission earlier than expected to request some rate increases due to cost escalations thereof. So this item was held off until we could make some good work of it and provide some understanding. So we then worked with our rate consultant to understand kind of before and after snapshot. What did future rate expectations look like with our current staffing array, and what do they look like if we increased staffing? So we analyzed that a few different ways. In your packets, we've got a snapshot of a financial asset management systems model. We call that a FAMS model. That's an export from our rate rate consultants. And essentially what that says, if you look at conditions before and conditions after, you see that a approximately 1% rate increase could be attributed to these FTE allocations in 2024 and in 2025. So that's kind of the financial background of that, about 1% of the water rates for the positions. I want to give some more background on some of the justification of the position requests themselves. You know, how did we get here and why are we recommending these positions? In 2021, we entered into an administrative consent order with Eagle. That order sets a series of milestones that the city must accomplish to implement an update to our corrosion control program, as well as some other updates in policy and structural changes within the water system. One of the things that we did is hired a consultant to go through and study the managerial, technical, and financial capacity of the water system. So it's a little bit different from, we're not looking at how big are the pipes or how big are the tanks or how much we can pump. We're looking at our human resources, how are management decisions made, how are our staff trained, and how do we interact with staff? Are the staffing levels adequate for the jobs and the functional elements of where the work's assigned and how the work is designed and distributed? One of the things that we also did during the study period was we took the process of a water main break. That's something that happens approximately 120 times a year in public services, and something that really challenges our entire department. It's a heavy lift for us. Every time we have a water main break, it's all boots on the ground, moving towards a common goal of getting it isolated, getting the valve shut, getting the thing repaired, getting water restored testing, monitoring, communicating, everything like that. We took that entire process and we did some process management through it, mapped it, and applied Lean Sigma to that process. And we were able to identify some improvements in that and really make for a better process going forward. Overall, like many things, the utility, we've seen a lot of changes as we came out of the Great Recession. We're seeing changes in level of service expectations from not only the regulators, but from the general public. What are folks' expectations for a water system? What are the demands on the system? And we're seeing that there's increased need for staffing, both from an operational perspective as well as a reflection of the investment in infrastructure that we're making. So there's a number of reports and items that are supplemental to the action item. I'd be happy to go through and talk about any of those items. I'll pause right now and turn the floor back over to City Commission for any comments or additional discussion.
Thank you, Director Baker. Any questions for Director Baker about this item? Yeah, Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yeah, this is a major step. We're talking about hiring 10 new people. And I think it's important. I think it's the right step. So many cities around the country are having trouble now with their water. And I think this is an initiative to really make sure that our water is clean and healthy. And so I commend you for putting this together and bringing it to us.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Prado.
Yeah, Director Baker, just kind of clarify for the public as well. So this is the budget amendment for this current budget year for about $225,000 for budget year 2023. But again, moving forward, it's estimated at about a $605,000 increase for those 10 positions, correct?
Correct, yeah, that is correct, Commissioner. There's a bunch of things going on here. We need the commission approval, or only commission can approve the positions. If there's more positions that were approved in the beginning of the budget, then there could be some financial adjustment that needs to be made. So those are also requested in the action item. But, we're mostly through the year already. By the time we start the action to actually, recruit positions will likely be into September or beyond. And so they're not funded like they would be if we were having this discussion on January 1st.
Yeah, I just want to be transparent with the public so they know, like, long-term what that commitment's going to be as well. Can you also just kind of help the public understand a little bit as well what's the difference between creating 10 full-time positions that are supporting our water infrastructure versus, say, 10 positions that we're putting in CPE and D, like for community planning, economic development? So what's the difference between somebody who's working and funded through our like enterprise funding versus general fund?
Certainly, and each city department has unique funding requirements and criteria. But I think the important message is that within the water utility, that's a special revenue fund. The revenues within the water fund have to support and fund the water fund. So the revenue that is realized through metered sales, through the sale of water, and and conversely with wastewater, when we bring that back, those proceeds go to fund the department. It's not something that comes from general fund, so there's no general fund support of that. It's all by ratepayers.
What we pay by rates is what we pay to make those positions possible, is what I'm trying to get to. Perfect. Just wanted to mention, I'm probably save it for comment, but I guess what I wanted to just really emphasize with this point is that it seems like a lot of positions, it's a lot of money, and it's very much true. But the reality is like the work that you and your team doing today in 2023 is vastly different than it was 10 years ago in terms of regulatory and compliance demands that are being brought down by the federal and state government that you guys have to adhere to test to make sure that the water's safe. Things that were concerns in the water today that we didn't realize would be concerns in the water even a couple years ago. Things like lead, where the threshold that we're now held to is lower, and thank God for that, but the demands for your team to make sure that we're keeping up with that is a lot higher. We have an aging infrastructure. As much work as we're doing, it's still deteriorating quickly, and that has greater demands on your team. But also, we are investing a record amount in infrastructure than we ever have before. And I'll be honest with you, one of the first meetings I had as a commissioner, I remember we were sitting at the wastewater treatment plant and the offices there getting a presentation from you on water rates. And one of my concerns is like, wow, looking at that graph of capital improvement projects is, gosh, how is that team, that lean team, going to do all this work? And so I'm really glad that we're making sure that the team has the resources they do need to keep up with all those demands.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pradel. Any other questions for Director Baker at this time? All right, seeing none, now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers. Thank you, Director Baker, to comment on this item. Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in the city. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Arlena Jones. I actually came here earlier for the Building Blocks program on Reed Street, but as I've been listening to the first meeting and the second meeting and with the discussion, I actually lived on Parkview, and there was a lot of times that I guess I asked is, are there going to be women that are going to be trained to be able to do these positions? That's a lot of money that a lot of people are going to be getting, and that's a lot of positions where, you know, there's a talk about why the violence is happening. Are people going to be able to be trained? Are some of our young men and women going to be able to have some of those jobs to be able to access some of that funding? Are some of the single mothers who are trying to make a living able to access the education, the tools and the resources? Because when I was on Parkview, there was many times that I would go to work early in the morning, no one was there. I would come to work at the end of the day, no one was there. There was no one working at all for days and weeks, and it was a huge inconvenience for all of us. We had to reroute what grocery stores we went to. It was completely shut down. Our one-way wasn't a two-way anymore. Like it made us wonder, why is it set up like this and why are we shut down at a complete stop? So as they're making the decisions to route how they're going to do the city, are they taking into considerations, are people going to be working actively? So at least we feel like, you know, somebody out there versus the city streets are blocked and no one is doing anything out there. So as we're trying to look at monies to help, you know, stop violence, are we going to use some of this money? Are we going to have people trained to be able to access the resources to be on the payroll, to be able to diversify where the money is going to be put into pockets to help families to maybe resolve some of these other issues, teamwork, effort, and unity? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who wants to comment on this item? Seeing no one else, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve the position allocations and budget adjustment. Is there a motion? Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Discussion, Commissioners. Vice Mayor Cooney? No? Okay. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for those words. And all of these positions should be posted on the city website. Is that correct? On the city website. So if anyone's listening, if anyone is looking for employment within the city of Kalamazoo, within the public services, please reach out. I believe we are really eliminating the check the box, even though you may not have all of those qualifications. Please come and apply, because you could be the one. You could be the apprentice. You could be someone that is taken on by a mentor within the public works to help further, again, the economic development and stability of individuals that are here in the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Burling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is item H4, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of a resolution approving the Stewart Neighborhood Plan 2023 as a subplan of the 2025 Master Plan.
Thank you very much, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Yes, I'd like to have our neighborhood activator, Jay Slaby, come forward, and she will give a brief presentation of the plan and what it means for our folks in Stewart neighborhood. Jay?
Hi, welcome Jay, and I see members of the Stewart Neighborhood Association Board right behind you here. Yes.
Good evening. As the city's neighborhood activator, I have the pleasure of presenting to you the 2023 Stewart Neighborhood Plan, the city's 8th subplan to be added to the 2025 Imagine Kalamazoo Master Plan. In 2017, the city adopted its master plan, which outlined the model for neighborhood planning as one of many strategic directions to achieve the city's goal of complete neighborhoods. Since then, the Stewart Historic Neighborhood Association, along with its residents, have worked towards completing their plan. This effort was paused temporarily due to the pandemic and board turnover. However, with resilience and determination, the association joined city staff last spring to reignite the initiative, hosting several community engagement activities during the summer and fall of 2022, identifying their 6 neighborhood goals, and planning over 100 projects. These projects align with all 10 of the city's strategic vision goals, from developing inviting public places through improvements to West Main Park, stewarding environmental responsibility with the installation of rain barrels and rain gardens throughout the neighborhood, fostering a safe community with investment in better lighting and traffic calming interventions, creating a more connected city with the support of the two-way conversion project and the addition of wayfinding and gateway signage, to promoting strength through diversity and shared prosperity through creative programming and improved outreach practices to all Stewart residents, providing youth development opportunities to neighborhood youth and local college students, encouraging economic vitality with supports for neighborhood businesses and incentives for mixed-use development on existing vacant properties, and ensuring good governance through the neighborhood's partnerships with city staff and other agencies to implement all of these projects, ultimately creating a complete neighborhood for residents to safely and comfortably access their daily needs. Stewart's 6 goals are ambitious and timely. They include increasing connectivity for all users, enhancing the public realm, championing community building, addressing housing needs, promoting historic preservation, and supporting Woodward School. This plan mirrors the previous 7 plans with its emphasis on direct resident engagement and alignment with other city plans and goals. It also features new sections that help strengthen the neighborhood plan as a tool for residents to enact effective change where they live, work, and play. At this time, I would like to highlight just 4 of these examples that help illustrate the value and possibilities of neighborhood planning in Kalamazoo. So, last October, Planning Division, we go to our annual conference for the Michigan Planning Association, and the keynote speaker dedicated their entire speech to the value of trees. And he said, out of his decades of work, and this was Mr. Philip McKenna, the founder of the McKenna Consulting Company, he said that his biggest regret throughout his career is not ensuring that there was, whether it was a section, a paragraph, or a chapter dedicated to trees in all of his plans. And so that made me ask, what are we looking at when it comes to tree canopy coverage in our neighborhood plans? So previous plans have had this as an item, but what was interesting is through our conversations with student residents, they had a lot of different priorities that ranged from historic preservation, street repair, and working with the Woodward School. Nothing really came up of the environmental responsibility around tree canopy coverage or flooding. And so this is the real value of the neighborhood plan process, because we have residents that have their lived experience that they share with us, projects that are tied to that. And then we, as experts, as city staff, we come with them and build that trust with residents to be able to share what we find may be important to consider. And so through our research as part of our community sustainability plan, we were able to share with Stewart residents that they're actually in the bottom 5 in the city for tree canopy coverage. And that was a surprise to them. And as soon as I shared that with them, they said, Jay, what are we going to do about that? And so again, that wasn't an original thought that was shared through engagement, but because city staff was able to build strong relationships with residents, they were able to trust these other ideas that we shared with them for consideration as part of the plan. So then the next one is about the historic district. So Stewart is one of the 5 historic districts in the city of Kalamazoo. We have another neighborhood that has a neighborhood plan, which is also a historic district, which is Vine. And we had some projects tied to historic preservation, but what we wanted to do was see how we can expand the role of historic preservation beyond regulations through creative programming, education, and relationships. We've heard a lot over the years that residents that live in historic districts feel like sometimes it's inaccessible to understand how they can do their projects timely and within their budget. And so through these projects laid out in the plan, we have workshops where we're bringing state staff representatives and utilizing our historic preservation coordinator here at the city to really work with residents through these workshops to provide them access to resources and support around being able to put together their project the way they want to and make it possible for them to move forward with those needed repairs to their homes that are located within a historic district. The third example is Woodward School. So in the past plans, we have a couple projects dedicated to making safe routes to schools through improving crosswalks, slowing down traffic. What we wanted to do with Stewart, and this was one of the top 6 priorities among residents, we wanted to recognize the elementary school as a neighborhood asset and explore the community's role in supporting the continued use of this building as a school through volunteer opportunities and programming open to student families and Stewart residents. What does a school that may not even have many students coming from the Stewart neighborhood mean to Stewart residents? And how can we continue to serve both the school and the school serve the neighborhood in a way that reciprocates the needs and desires of both parties? So I'm really excited to have that as a whole goal in this plan and have several priority projects related to that. Lastly, what I wanted to do based on additional engagement, again, the priorities range from street repair to Woodward School and preserving historic preservation. What I also heard was people needed help with repairing their homes. And they also were concerned about the health and safety within their home and around their home. And so we wanted to help determine residents' housing needs and be able to create projects that help people live with dignity in their home, free from hazards and disrepair. So these projects are aimed to imagine better systems to support residents in caring for their homes and getting connected with the right resources to do so. So as we continue to improve this process with each neighborhood, we will imagine even more opportunities to connect with our residents in meaningful ways and ensure that these plans generally reflect the priorities of everyone in the neighborhood. I'm proud to have Stewart be my first neighborhood plan that I bring forth to the City Commission, and I look forward to working on many more for Kalamazoo. Without further delay, I submit the 2023 Stewart Neighborhood Plan to you all for your consideration of approval this evening.
Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate that. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jay, for that. I just have a couple of questions to maybe you can help educate our community. Just real quickly, what is the importance of having a neighborhood plan? What benefits would, say, a neighborhood get, just to kind of reiterate that?
Right, so the city has a strategic vision with their goals, right? And so that's very high level in what are our values and how are we going to achieve those values through special programming and projects. In order to help identify what those strategies are going to be able to achieve those strategic vision goals, we create a master plan, which is our Imagine Kalamazoo 2025. Now, as a city, we decide to invest in a neighborhood planning model, which then extends the master plan strategies down to the neighborhood scale so that we're working directly with stakeholders and understanding if the strategy is to make a more connected city through sidewalk and street improvements, what does that mean for a resident in Stewart? And so we're hearing from them the specific intersections they cross every day and the issues that they may face while doing so. So we can go back to city departments and let them know when they're putting together their capital improvement plans, their annual budgets, or other looking at how to prioritize other projects, they understand what's going to make the most impact to the lived experiences for our residents by listening to them directly and having that captured in this document that is then approved by Planning Commission and the Commission.
So when you talk about, getting residents involved, you know, this is for our Stewart neighborhood. You think about the Winchell plan. That was all put together by the residents there, and we were trying to incorporate some of the things that they wanted. We tried, some work, some don't work, you know. Really what that is being able to have the residents come and say, hey, I want a playground here. Hey, I want traffic calming here. Or hey, I want bike lanes. I don't walk bike lanes. And that is really, I think, the essence of having the neighborhood plan, because the neighborhood has said, this is what we want. The city approves it, and then it goes within our master plan. And I think it's very important that, you know, all of our neighborhoods have that. Can you tell me of a total, how many neighborhoods have plans?
If Stewart is approved today, we'll have 8.
And how many more neighborhoods still need plans so those residents that live in those areas can give input to really shape their neighborhood?
14.
14. That is a lot. But you're taking it one neighborhood, well, you're probably taking 2 or 3 neighborhoods at a time if I know you. So can you talk about how that relates to, so we've got the Stewart plan coming up. How does that relate to what is going to be happening with IK 2035, which we are planning for?
Yeah, so we will continue to work with neighborhoods that are passionate about putting together a neighborhood plan up until Imagine Kalamazoo 2025 ends, and then we then approve our 2035 master plan. I think with that, what we'll do is work towards carrying any plans over that we've done within the last 3 to 4 years over to 2035 master plan, and then work with neighborhoods that aren't organized with neighborhood associations, those with associations that haven't even kicked off their neighborhood planning process as part of the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 master plan, and work with those that have had their neighborhood plans for a while now and understand what is needed for an update so that we can better align that with any changes that are made as part of Imagine Kalamazoo 2035.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Decker. Other questions? Commissioner Prado.
Hey, Jay, thank you for all your work. You've been doing a tremendous job with the neighborhoods. I appreciate if you ever get a chance, Jay will be going door to door sometimes to meet with residents sitting on their porch, talking things over, and I think you've been doing a great job with each neighborhood and issues that come up. Was curious, I noticed there was a stat in there that said that the neighborhood population had decreased by about 16% since 2010. Did you get any sense about what might be causing that, or trends that are causing that, whether it's positive or negative trends?
Yeah, so we have we have actually a pretty sizable student population that chooses Stewart to live in. So we'll always have that kind of transient population that will go in and out. And then I also think, you know, over time there's been changes within Kalamazoo that may influence people moving to different neighborhoods or even moving out of Kalamazoo. And I think some of our projects, especially under Support Woodward School, is to find ways to attract and support needs of families that are choosing Stewart already. By strengthening that pipeline, education pipeline, from having daycare right there and being able to welcome them into Woodward School. So we hope to turn that around over the next few years.
Sure, thank you. I also was just really impressed that goal number 6 was supporting Woodward School. It's not something you typically see, and I was just kind of curious if you could explain a little bit of the thought process that went behind that to say, hey, you know, we want to make this an integral part of our plan, you know, one of our top 6 plans basically to support an educational institution in the heart of the neighborhood.
Yeah, so schools in many communities are considered critical community infrastructure. And so understanding that we have strong support networks throughout the city, and we wanted to ensure that we recognize the school as a neighborhood asset and what that might mean for Stewart residents. Stewart residents utilize the grounds for a lot of community building and activities and events in partnership with student families and staff there at Woodward. And then also understanding that students that come to Woodward, even if they don't live in the Stewart neighborhood, they're there 8 hours a day, every day. So they are a stakeholder, and they should be embraced as such as part of this planning process. And then what did that look like? So based on all of the engagement that has been done in the Stewart neighborhood since they started this in 2017, one of the top 6 priorities that kept coming up was, what do we do with our relationship with Woodward? And so we wanted to ensure that that was reflected in the plan as one of the 6 goals.
And just one quick last question as well. I was just curious, just listening to the public and resident comments over time, I've definitely heard from people in Stewart over concerns and impacts of the arena on the neighborhood and how that's going to impact quality of life for them. There's no refuting the fact that for folks on the north side, Stewart and Vine, it's going to have an impact. You can't have a concert with 8,000 people and have them gush out to the arteries of our streets without having some impact, right? So I was just curious, if there was any talk in integrating thoughts into the plan about the impacts of the arena.
Yeah, since this is all new, we did make reference to the arena, but we're not sure exactly how it will all unfold and what it will exactly look like and what all the impact that will come from this. But one thing we did want to consider, which is outlined in the increase connectivity for all users goals, is to understand the impact on parking and recognize that there's different on-street parking regulations currently in Stewart. How do we make sure that we think of that carefully as we move forward with not just the arena, but we are seeing a lot of growth in commercial and residential development in the downtown area, which will eventually spill over into the neighboring neighborhoods. And so just making sure how can we accommodate for the residents' needs for parking as well as visitors and customers. And so we wanted to ensure that that was a project for us to continue to explore different mechanisms and programs that can help us better manage parking expectations into the future.
And I think it's not just the negative as well. There's some positives out of it as well. I mean, you have probably the closest pedestrian access or biking access to major entertainment. You have opportunity of employment as well, and so that will all, potentially impact the neighborhood as well. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Jay, for your excellent presentation, for your energy, for your expertise. I wanted to commend the people for the neighborhood for the plan is like a celebration of your neighborhood, which is really great. And the whole idea of trying to really reach out to everybody that's in the neighborhood, the students, the people that are not involved, trying to get them involved. That and the environmental focus that you had in your plan, I thought was so great. So very nice job.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Hess.
Ditto. I was going to say that, Vice Mayor Cooney. But Jay, I appreciate your level of engagement, enthusiasm, passion for the neighborhood, for all the neighborhoods of Kalamazoo. I know so because you're currently working on my Westwood plan, my neighborhood plan. What I see it happening in my neighborhood is a sense of ownership, a sense of pride in the neighborhood, and a sense that, my voice matters. And these neighborhood plans do that throughout the city. So thank you for doing that. And also, it's been said here by Commissioner Prado, but thank you for including Woodward School. The educational institutions in this city are essential to the success of the city. So thank you for that, that inclusion. I was wondering if we could hear from some of the residents. I know the residents are here, but was it your plan to let them speak about how this has impacted them and their thought about their neighborhood?
Yeah, if they're able to come up and speak, I'm sure they'll love to.
Yeah, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Jay. So, yeah, if people would be so kind, as I know the president of SARA is here, other board members, if you at least stand up. Thank you. Yes, be recognized. So, Jay, thank you for facilitating this, but this is where the work has to be ground through here at the neighborhood association with the members and all the outreach. So thank you very much, everyone who's put hours and hours and hours into this. I think Gary, are you president of SARA at this moment? Would you like to say a few words then, or?
Sure. Good evening. My name's Gary Wark. I chair the Stewart Historic Neighborhood Association. I live at 428 Stewart Avenue. I'd really like to thank Jay Schlaby and her staff, along with Christina Anderson, for the effort they put into this this neighborhood plan, as well as the Stewart Board and our residents. We started the plan prior to COVID. The COVID pandemic has taken quite some time to put it all together. We're looking forward to the implementation of the project. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wark. All right. Well, once again, thank you for all of your work. You might want to have a mention, is there a special event happening this week?
As a matter of fact, we have our annual meeting tomorrow at 8 p.m. and it's our 50th anniversary. 6 p.m., I'm sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Group effort there.
Can I say something?
So, yes, please.
We are having a back-to-school event at Woodward School on the 23rd of August, which if you look at our website, we're having a bike raffle and haircuts by a barber and gifts for teachers. We got a lot going on. And we're going to have a jazz event coming up in the next month. And we have a lot going on.
While you're up here, I mean, one thing that's been an opportunity for school and community interaction is represented on the tower on the school there. If you just want to say a little bit about that.
Okay. So the Stewart Neighborhood Association, that was my project, but in conjunction with the KPS, we were able to get the clock. If you notice on the Woodward School, there's a clock tower that, that's a historical building. Of course, you all know that. And the clock hasn't worked in over 30 years. So actually, Mayor Anderson was able to connect me with someone who might know how to fix it, a retired county employee, because there's not many people that know how to fix clocks. And it was a long process, but we found the company that originally put those parts in there. They're on the other side of the state. And then they knew a company that could go up there and install it. Anyway, miraculously, the clock works. And so it's just, and that is, due to a lot of people that made it work. But I have to say that give credit to the principal at Woodward School, who we all love. He's a fabulous guy, Frank Rocco. And he wanted the clock fixed, and he's got so much energy and love for the school that he inspires everyone else. So it was he was the one that said he would like the clock fixed. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your work, and thanks for being here this evening. Now is the opportunity then for public comments on this item. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment on this particular item on the agenda? Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. Any discussion, Commissioners? Commissioner Pradle.
Can just echo colleagues who congratulate you on a great job well done. This is a huge, huge deal for y'all. And, it's almost hard to refute that neighborhoods that have gone through this process are stronger and they have a competitive advantage. They just do. Because you've built that community now and that interconnectivity with each other to get things done. And that's powerful. It's in some ways more powerful than the words on a document. But anyways, I just wanted to make sure to mention that, congratulate you. But also I wanted to say, I should be noted that there are a former and current mayor, 2 successive mayors that are Stewart residents. So there must be something to that. But anyways, again, congratulations to both of you, or for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Barling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker. Yes. Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next on our regular agenda, and you are excused, you don't have to stay around. Thus, Director Mitchell, thank you for being here. I know you weren't part of the presentation, but your backbone supporting Jay Slaby and all that work, so thank you. Manager Isma, regular item H5.
Adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation limited tax bonds in an amount not to exceed $14,835,000 for the purpose of financing the fiscal year 2023 capital projects. And I'd like to call forward our CFO, Steve Vicenzi. He's going to provide a brief description that's going to cover the next several items that are all related to bond issuance. Steve?
All right, good evening. I'm going to comment real quickly here about items H5 through H8. So just to kind of summarize here, this is the last approval required for a bonding process that happens each year. And just kind of walking back through a little bit, our bonding process really starts when we're budgeting every year. And so during our budget, we create all of our capital plans, which kind of set forth and list out, the rough amounts that we plan to bond for the year. And then as we kind of finalize the budget and work through the year and see exactly what we need to bond, we come back with a notice of intent to bond, and that's our first notice to the public of exactly how many dollars we're planning on bonding for each issuance in the year. And then after that, there's a referendum period of 45 days, assuming that ends without any protests being filed with the clerk's office. We then move forward to tonight's approval, and then eventually to sell the bonds generally in the open market. So just kind of going through the different issuances we have in front of you tonight. H5 is our general capital improvement bonds. Those include our local and major streets capital plans. It also includes our general CIP plan, which includes building improvements, KDPS equipment, heavy equipment for our public services, and our parks improvements as well. Item H6 is a bonding that we do through the state's Drinking Water Revolving Fund program. This is related to a specific project. Majority of it is lead service replacement. We have some additional portions of it that were added to the project to help ensure that we qualify for the program. And that's a $23.7 million bond. Of that amount, over $10.2 million is ARPA funding from the state that will be free grant money to the city. And another $4.8 million will qualify for principal forgiveness from the state as well. So we're left with roughly about $7 million of that bond that we will be paying back to the state at a rate of about 1.8%. So significantly lower than current market rates. So huge program to take advantage of there. And Director Baker and his team have done a wonderful job of getting us involved in that program. And then item H7 is our standard water standard water system bonds, Those are paid using the revenue from the water system. These are already included in the rates that were passed for 2023, so nothing new being added to the budget here. I do want to make a note on item H7. We did have kind of a Scribner's error on the original agenda. We need to add language at the end of the recommended item that would include and adoption of a notice of sale resolution. The resolution was included in the packet, however, we just kind of left off a few words at the end of the recommendation, so apologize for that error. And then item H8 is, again, it's kind of same thing except for our wastewater fund. It's our $21.6 million bonding for our wastewater capital plan. And those are also paid for at rates that have already been approved.
Thank you, Steve. Sensei, are there any questions? Commissioner Praedel.
Hey, Steve, thanks for being here tonight. I was noticing on H5, 7, and 8, those were notice of intents that came before us at the June 20th meeting. But on H6, that came before us, I think it was December 5th, 2022. What's the difference why that one was like a longer period from the notice of intent?
That was us a little bit getting ahead of the schedule, but also that has to follow the state schedule for that drinking water revolving fund program. So that was, the time that we had the project finalized, we need to get the notice of intent published on a certain time frame and able to move forward with the application. And that's just why that one tended to wait so long compared to the others.
Okay. And then I just was noticing on H7 as well, just to make sure to clarify for the community as well. Originally, when the notice of intent came before us, that was estimated at 37 million and some change. And it's coming before us tonight at 28.975 million. So it's less. And that was just because, again, once things were just kind of calculated and figured out expense-wise, that was found to be less that we needed than initially anticipated, correct?
Yes, that was due kind of to two parts. One, working with our bond counsel, we'd kind of originally left a little extra in because there are times with the drinking water revolving fund program that if our estimates are a little low on the project, we need to use regular bonds to supplement. And then also working with Director Baker and his team, kind of slimming that down as much as possible, knowing that interest rates are up right now. But how much can we get by on versus trying to fully fund every project that may not entirely get finished this year.
It's a positive thing, I suppose, for the folks. And then last question as well, big news here in the last week was Fitch downgraded the U.S. Credit rating from AAA to AA+. In terms of impacts that trickles down to us at some point, you mind sharing? I mean, you've got an economics and finance background, so I thought it'd be useful to hear that from you.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to kind of trickle down to us. I know our ratings are based on, largely our community. The water and wastewater rates are based on, our ability to fund the projects that we're proposing. So as we come forward every year with rate recommendations, as those continue to get improved, that bodes well for us in our upcoming rating. They base this on our tax base. They just kind of look at, different financial factors for the city as well, and depending on each fund. So as far as the United States overall credit taking a ding, I don't know that would directly trickle down to us anytime soon.
And we actually saw a credit rating increase as a municipality, correct, not too long ago?
Yes, I believe, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but yep, we have, improved our credit rating to AA-, which is a very solid credit rating overall.
Can you remind us again what they attributed that to?
Largely to, depending on the bonding, I know the utility ones have been because of the actions of this commission and the willingness to increase rates to meet the requirements for the capital plan. Also strong financial management that we've had and good policies that we have in place, along with, in the general fund, we've had a strong fund balance and good policies to protect that as well. So they're kind of always looking at how long can you pay for things. And then one other thing that's kind of really helped, especially in the general rating, is the establishment of the FFE endowment. That has become more and more established. It gives the rating agency more assurance that the tax stabilization and budget stabilization funds will continue to flow to the city and for a longer period of time.
Moral of the story there, federal government, credit rating ding, poor governance. Moral of the story, City of Kalamazoo municipality, strong fiscal management. Nice job, City Commission, as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel. Any other questions for Steve Vicenzi at this time? All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Steve. Now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. This is item H5. Are there any comments on this item from anybody here in the chambers? Seeing none, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess, supported by Commissioner Juarez. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. And the next item on the regular agenda is H6, City Manager Ritzma.
Adoption of an ordinance authorizing water supply system revenue bonds, Series 2023B, in an amount not to exceed $13.4 million.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. I presume there's no separate presentation on this. Mr. Vicenzi kind of covered all four of these items. Does anybody have any questions here that they want to ask about this one in particular on the commission? No? All right. then, not seeing any questions from up here, is there anyone in the chambers here that would like to comment on this item, as item H6? Seeing no one, then, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez. Supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. Any discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes?
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney, Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Thank you, Clerk Borling, and thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next item on the regular agenda is item H7. City Manager Risma.
Adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of water supply system revenue refunding bonds, Series 2023, in the amount of $28,975,000, and adoption of a notice of sale resolution.
Thank you very much, Manager Risma. So just a note for anyone who's looking at the ordinance, the last portion of the sentence was accidentally not included
Right.
in the motion, even though the document was in the packet.
Correct.
So we just adjust that to make sure we're taking care of the business we need to take care of. We've already had Mr. Vicente speak to this one as well. Presuming there's no additional questions from Commission, is there anyone in the chambers who would like to comment on this item, item H7? Seeing no one. Commissioners, recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance and notice of sale resolution. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez. Supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next item on the regular agenda, City Manager Ritzma, is H8.
Adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of wastewater supply system revenue bonds, Series 2023, for an amount not to exceed $21,655,000, and adoption of a notice of sale resolution.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Any questions for staff on this one, Commissioners? Seeing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to comment on this item? It is regular agenda item H8. Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance and resolution. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Juarez. Supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. Discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez,
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker,
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. We now have two more regular agenda items. The next one is consent agenda item G4. Manager Ritzma.
Yes, adoption of a resolution to set the election date and determine the ballot language for a charter amendment to allow for ranked choice voting for the offices of mayor and city commissioner.
So I know we weren't prepared with a report on this, but I'm wondering if our city attorney, are you prepared to speak to this item a little bit?
I can speak briefly towards it.
Oh, that'd be helpful.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mayor and Commissioners, on May 24, 2023, a citizen petition was filed with the City Clerk's Office, and that initiative proposes to amend the charter and the manner in which the mayor and commissioners are elected by the voters as described in the Kalamazoo City Charter. Currently, the mayor and the commissioners are elected by receiving a plurality of votes cast in the regular municipal election. The initiative ballot petition proposes to change that process to a ranked choice voting system. In the memo, I do describe exactly how ranked choice voting system works. It's not easily explainable to that, but I've tried my best in the memo to actually describe how this process works. when it comes to, voters are ranking, under this system, voters are ranking candidates in order of preference, first, second, third, and so forth. If the candidate receives the majority of the first preference votes, then that elected position is closed and the candidate wins. So the example I used is a group of 4 mayoral candidates. If one candidate receives more than 50% of the first preference votes, your first choice that you ranked, then the candidate is winner and the election is closed. On the other hand, if mayoral candidate reaches a 50% plus 1 margin, then the candidate who ended in last place is eliminated, and the second ranked choice candidates on that eliminated candidate's ballots are reallocated to the remaining 3 mayoral candidates. This process repeats until one mayoral candidate reaches a 50% plus 1 majority. That's the easy way to describe it. The commissioners is a little bit more detailed as the way it was written in the petition, and in the charter amendment language that you see that is also attached into this. But I use the mayoral example because it's easier to explain and understand. It's important to note that the ballot proposal, if adopted, will only take effect when Michigan election law is amended to allow for the use of ranked choice voting, and voting equipment capable of implementing ranked choice voting is available and obtained by the City of Kalamazoo. And this requirement is noted in sections 5 and 6 in the attached resolution. And so as you go through, you'll notice that the certificate, the city secretary has issued his certification of the initiatory petition, so that is included. The resolution that which you are proposed to adopt is also included. The resolution does include in the existing language of the charter, which is in black font, and all the new provisions that are being inserted to make room for ranked choice voting appear in the red font. There are several pages that contain, and they're pretty extensive. There is one thing that I would like to point out with respect to Section 8. Section 8 is currently in the charter consists of 3 sections, A, B, and C. There appears to have been an error in the petition gathering process where I think what the petitioners intended was to create a new Section 8D, which includes the language that's inserting that begins with, in the event state law allows for the use of ranked choice voting and voting machine equipment capable of implementing ranked choice voting is available, and so forth. Currently, 8C addresses how many members of a city commission it takes to constitute a quorum, as well as how many votes are necessary to adopt ordinances and resolutions. So those are 2 primary subjects in that. But in this case, if this is adopted as is, that provision would be, in essence, repealed. So you would still have an A, B, and C, but technically there wouldn't be a D because there never was a D. I raise that just so that you're all aware. Again, can we change this? In my opinion, no, because the voters who signed this petition relied upon the actual written language of the charter as amended. So that's why that was left unchanged.
That's Section 8?
Section 8, yes. So we could always do another charter amendment in the future to correct that if this is adopted, and we can go through that process and explain to the voters what happened as well. So with that, I have no further information to add to this.
Thank you, Attorney Leal. Questions for our attorney on this item? Commissioner Hess.
So were this to be adopted by us this evening, the vote then goes to November.
Yes.
But it would not take effect until at least 2025, if indeed Michigan law allowed it? Or does Michigan law have to allow it before we adopt it?
Well, before you adopt the system, yes.
Right.
It has to be adopted by Michigan law, and the voting machines capable of performing this ranked choice voting is available for us to purchase. And I believe that's sections 5 and 6 of the proposed petition.
But it would not, but it wouldn't happen, but it wouldn't go into effect until at least 2025?
the earliest.
The earliest, okay.
Other questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Hess kind of asked one of the questions that I had. So, City Attorney Leo, when you talk about approved by Michigan, is this?
It's not legal in Michigan.
What?
Without getting into too much detail, I know that there are two trains of thought. There's people who are proposing this particular measure believe that the law currently allows that. The Secretary of State's office, has issued an opinion that it does not allow that, and there is an actual letter that has been sent to various municipalities who are going through this. I have a copy of the one that was sent to Lansing, I believe. And so they would, of course, request that the legislature take this up and actually amend election law to provide for the system, assuming it does pass through both houses of the legislature.
Okay, so for clarification, as of right now, we're not allowed to do it within Michigan until the state legislature actually approves it. This is just the language to get it into the charter, so if that happens, we can do that. So we could put this into our charter, it could never happen. We could put this into our charter and it could happen. It's just, you don't know.
Exactly. That's exactly what the city of Ferndale, if I'm not mistaken, has actually adopted this, and it's in their charter, but they're just waiting for further state action.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't need to ask my other question then. Thank you.
Other, Commissioner Praedel?
I was just going to mention, could share too. So the Michigan Ranked Choice folks who brought this ballot petition to the city of Kalamazoo, they're doing it in other communities as well. They're doing it in 2 other communities, I believe. And the thought process is that you're kind of poking at the bear, so to speak, in 3 different areas to show, wow, there's these 3 communities that are saying, hey, we want this to be the way that our elections are done in the state of Michigan. And so, just recognize that if voters vote yes for this, it's not like next election necessarily we're going to be able to do ranked choice voting, but, it's making a statement, that could maybe make progress in terms of changing. It's a system that's done in many places around the country, including New York City, for example. And so there is precedence of where these things, where it's happening in the country as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel. Commissioner Decker?
I just wanted to also ask, with this now going to be on the ballot, what type of education will the community receive regarding this? How will we, Mr. Messer, I don't know if I'm able to ask him to come up and ask, how do we inform the community and give information on this? As confusing as it could be to some individuals in certain ways, I don't know.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know
Attorney Leo.
what this community has used in other ballot proposals, whether it was for ordinance or for a charter amendment. You have to keep in mind of the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, which restricts the use of city resources to advocate for something like this, or advocates for or against. You can put out a neutral, educational or explanatory document to help, but it has to be neutral. That is easier said than done. In my previous state, those kinds of neutral documents were usually challenged in litigation. I don't know, I have not seen that as much in Michigan, but I would advise that if this commission does put out or direct staff to put out a communication, that it would be neutral. Certainly, of course, the proponents of the petition are free to advocate and explain how they see fit, because they are not tied or bound by the Michigan Campaign Finance Act.
Okay, and I just want for clarification for individuals that may have worked on this and that could possibly be running. If you are running for a seat, you cannot advocate for this within the Michigan Campaign Act, or can you? Can they?
You can't use city resources to do that.
To do, okay, perfect. I just wanted clarification, so we're all clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions or comments on this item? Yeah, Vice Mayor Cooney.
I just want to commend the people that took the initiative, and we have one of them sitting right there, Jeff. and who put this on the ballot, because that took an awful lot of work, and I really appreciate that initiative coming from the people.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Anything, Commissioner Decker?
Real quick, Mayor, thank you. And I just want to reiterate on what Vice Mayor Cooney says is I know they had some issues in the front and you guys got back out there and did what you needed to do to get the votes to get this on the ballot. So I do commend you guys on that. That's a lot of signatures and a lot of talking and a lot of Saturdays and a lot of your time, all your guys' time to be out there to bring this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other questions? So, hey, just a few comments from me on this then is that just a reminder that the ballot language itself is not included as part of the petition process. So that means that it's up to our own city attorney then to write the actual ballot language, correct?
That is correct, and it has been so written in the resolution.
Right. So just a reminder, this is ballot language. We take the petitions, and then our good city attorney makes the effort to then encapsulate that into ballot language. So what we are, this action is really, I mean, the requirements have been met to put this on the ballot. There are two ways that things could go on the ballot in the city. We could ask for something to be put on the ballot, or citizens can request something to be put on the ballot. That can't happen at the county level. But at our level, Home Rule City Act, that can happen. It can happen at the state level. We've witnessed that happening at the state. So that's a great way for a citizen-driven initiative to come forward. Also, it does leave you in some situations, as happened with our statewide marijuana ordinance, where some things that are written by people who care about something turn out not to be as effective as you had hoped, even though you passed them, and now that's what you got, related to equity. We've talked about that, for example, but that was not written, originally with maybe the most effective kind of a comprehension of that might work. So anyway, but here, this is not the first time at all. We've had a citizen-driven initiative come forward, and then it's just our responsibility to make sure that the language gets created. It goes on the ballot. That certainly is, our process here in the city, which I appreciate very much. And I guess just personally, one thing I would just recommend for those who are supportive of this is, I have not personally received a good explanation on this part of it, even from those who've been supportive of it, is in the city of Kalamazoo, on the commission race, we have every resident that votes has 3 first place votes. You don't have to rank your commissioners 1, 2, and 3. You can choose 3 people that you want in 3 spots. So you have 3 first place votes when you're voting for a commission. So that would be a reduction in our the strength of your vote. If you said no, you have to rank your commissioners 1 through 3, you might want 3 people equally, and we are all given that option. So that will just be another piece of this to keep in mind how that goes forward, how that will manifest. It's obviously somewhat simpler to explain when it comes to a single race, like the mayor's race. A little more complicated to explain how that will work when it comes to commission race. So there will be other complicating features to interpret that. And I just want to say this overall, not one thing or another on this. I mean, it came from a lot of hard work. It's going to be on the ballot. One thing we are very, very focused on here, and our city clerk has done a fabulous job of it, in my estimation, is trying to reinforce this idea of election integrity and trust. And obviously we have a big problem with that in the country right now. And we have now, that's been complicated by a couple things, because what helps people trust elections? When it's simple, you understand it. I vote him for him, that person won, you can just see that, all right? And it happens relatively quickly. That supports trust. If things take a week or 2, people began feeling, well, someone's, for whatever reason, there's conspiracy thinking about, well, it took 2 weeks, someone's messing around and changing votes. So that said, we have a couple things that are happening across the country, but in the city of Kalamazoo. If you look at the voting that occurred in our May election, I would say 85% of those votes came in absentee. And the way it has been working, now that means you're counting all those votes the day of when it comes in like that. And that's been a big, big challenge for our city clerk, and our city clerk got a great, great job of it. But right now, our city clerk is working on the next iteration of that, which I won't get into all the details here. I'm sure we'll have Clerk Borley speak about this more, but there's a very extended process of early voting and capacity to do some kind of counting, or at least accumulating in advance, and I won't delve in it too deeply, but there's a lot of conversation from clerks now all across the state relative to this state change and all the extra work it's going to take for our local clerks' offices, and whether that is maybe to some extent an unfunded mandate, and how we're going to handle staffing that. So we've got that big change coming also. The last thing I want to say along those lines is that not so many years ago, we just had a simple voting process in the city of Kalamazoo. Everybody was running at the same time, no questions. Everybody had 7 first-place choices, right? Which resulted in a mayor and city commission. Now, just in the last few years, we have adjusted our system so that now half the commission is running and the other half is not, and then there's a separate mayor's race. And I have to say, even from people in the city of Kalamazoo now, I often hear, what's going on? Who's running? Is Don running? No, Don's not running. This side of the dais are halfway through their terms, and this side, including me, have running again. So from my personal experience, simpler is better. We want to encourage people to vote, and it's even simple changes like going to the staggered terms and half the people running still throws people off. So I guess I will encourage those who are supportive of this further complication of our increasingly complicated system. Think very thoughtfully about that in your own materials that you're putting out in support of this, and then there we go. Raw democracy, everyone gets to decide in November. Something else? Yes, Commissioner Prado.
You went there. I was going to wait for comment period.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I would just urge people to take a look at this. There is significant literature that shows that in many cases where ranked choice voting has been implemented, that there's been a boon in better representation of women and people of color in office. The other thing as well is when you have this system, that you also have the capability of, you don't lose your vote. So say if there's 7 people running for mayor and you voted for the person who came in 7th. Well, you get to say, well, just in case my person that I was rooting for doesn't make it, I want my second person to be chosen. So then it goes into that pot. And if that person doesn't get it, then it goes into your third choice. So you're really making sure that your preference goes there. But the one thing that I will say is a caveat that the public needs to be ready for in these systems that happen. To your point, you will not get results the night of the election. And people have to be tremendously patient because it is a complicated process. It will be costly for a community because, all of a sudden you need the expertise and the equipment to do it. And again, just keeping in mind that just because people vote for this doesn't mean it's going to happen necessarily right away or ever for that matter. But, I have faith that the folks who put this ballot initiative forward can hopefully help educate, since we can't necessarily do that. And, hopefully there's an appetite from people who are voters in the city to educate themselves to decide whether they want this or not. And I like the fact that the public gets to weigh in and decide what they want to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. So I did jump the line there a little bit, Commissioner Pradel, so I appreciate that. So I guess at this point, What I will ask for, since there's no more questions for our attorney here, is now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item. You'll have 3 minutes, and please state your name and where you live in the city.
2 here, 2 here. Okay, stand closer. Okay. Good evening. Jeff Messer, City Commissioner candidate and Rank My Vote volunteer. Here's some others. I would like to thank Amanda McMillan, Shelby Moss, Scott Borling, and the rest of the City Clerk's staff for giving us a month of their time to verify the approximately 3,200 petition signatures we submitted on May 24. Scott's staff went above and beyond the required duties and verified all 3,200 signatures. They could have stopped once they found 2,745 valid ones, but they verified every single one and found 3,018 to be valid. Once again, thank you, Scott Borling and staff, for your excellent work. Ranked choice voting has many benefits. The one I like the best is it allows voters to indicate their true candidate preferences without fear of wasting votes or spoiling elections. In our current plurality voting system, a voter has to choose between participating in the real election among the supposed leading candidates who have all the money and support, or voting their conscience for candidates they actually like the best. So often, people say they want to vote for lesser-known candidates, but they can't bring themselves to do it because they have to vote against the leading candidate that they despise. Ranked choice voting solves this problem by allowing voters to indicate their preferences for candidates in rank order. You can indicate your actual favorite candidate as your first choice, maybe a candidate with good ideas but no money as your second choice, and simultaneously tell the voting system who you prefer among the leading candidates. As long as you rank the candidates, your vote will eventually count for someone, which eliminates the wasted vote problem. Ranked choice voting also eliminates the spoiler effect of less popular candidates by effectively allowing similar candidates to combine their votes if no candidate gets a 50% or more majority of the first preference votes. Ranked choice voting eliminates the lesser of two evils problem because voters have the freedom to rank all the candidates, not just one. To learn more about ranked choice voting, how it works and the benefits it provides to both voters and candidates, please visit our website at rankmyvote.org, as you see on the t-shirts, where MY is MI, the postal abbreviation for Michigan. We're hoping that you will agree that ranked choice voting is a good change for both the city of Kalamazoo and the entire state of Michigan, and you will vote yes for ranked choice voting on your November 7 ballot. Thank you, and please welcome another one of our Rank My Vote volunteers to the lectern.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Glasser. I live on the east side. I am also a candidate for Congress running to represent Michigan's 4th District. I am a former volunteer of Rank My Vote, and I still very much believe in their mission. I want to say that as a Democrat, ranked choice voting is good for everyone. It is good for Democrats, it is good for Republicans, it is good for third parties, and it's even good in nonpartisan races like we see here in Kalamazoo. As was already mentioned, one of the biggest things is in partisan elections, it gets rid of the spoiler effect. Third-party voters are told that they are throwing away their vote or they are spoiling the election. If a Green Party member votes, oh, you're just giving in to the Republicans. If you're a Libertarian and you vote, oh, you're just giving in and letting the Democrats win. This way, with ranked choice voting, people can vote their conscience, and they can also rank their other options. So if you're Green, if you vote for the Green Party, maybe the Democrat's your second choice. If you're Libertarian, maybe the Republican is your second choice. And so not only can those third-party voters get their voice heard and vote their conscience, but also the major party candidates aren't affected by those quote-unquote spoiler votes, and they have a chance to earn that second option or that third option. And ranked choice voting is good in principle because it believes on that you need a majority support to vote, or to win, sorry. You need that 50% plus one. Right now, if next election, 6 people run for mayor, someone could win with 25% of the vote. That's not a proper democracy. Ranked choice voting says that in order to win, you need majority support of the people, and that's why I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Pat Hall. I live in Westwood, but I
I've been continuously employed in the city of Kalamazoo since 1974, so this is where all my blood, sweat, and tears are. Just to the point, and your question that you had, Mayor, well, you know, how are we doing it with 3 votes and 7 votes and what's that? Whenever I've been given a ballot with multiple, I can get 3. If there's one I want, I don't give those other 2 away. I'll just vote for the one. Because I'd hate for that other one and that other one. What if those 2 people edged out the one that I really wanted? So this whole thing, if you gave me a ballot of 7, and I said, that's the one I want, I would only put 1 vote. Ranked choice ballot solves that equation. And I would put down my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then allow the majority of the people say, that's my person up there. Right now, what we have is malaise, people going to the polls in dwindling numbers because they were unexcited about the person they voted last time around because they just detested their competition more. And why show up for something like that? This is something where every voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon Pat.
Hello, Commissioners. Let me pull up my notes. I'm Pat Zabawa. I'm a volunteer with Rank My Vote and a member of its board of directors. I'm also elected member of the board of directors of the People's Food Co-op of Ann Arbor, which I say to empathize with you juggling jobs, constituents, elections, governance, all while trying to make the community better. So as I tell elected officials when I write or speak to them, thank you for your service. Among all this, and my personal day job is a software manager. I wanted to speak briefly today to some of the concerns the commissioners brought up about implementation of ranked choice voting on municipal or jurisdictional level. First, ranked choice voting is used in many jurisdictions in the United States, small and large, as mentioned, New York City, Maine, Alaska, and the one to use it for the longest is Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I say this when it comes to implementing ranked choice voting because there are many templates for how clerks and jurisdictions can use it, vendors familiar with it, and education programs on it that are out there. And I want to mention some of the outside resources. So certainly Rank My Vote, we don't just seek to stop at getting this on the ballot and winning, and passing it on the ballot, but seeking to help it succeed and work on educating voters. We have a C3 nonprofit that works for that purpose in the state to educate voters on ranked choice voting. Separately from Rank My Vote, there's a nonprofit called the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center, which is a nonprofit nationally that exists specifically to help jurisdictions implement ranked choice voting and has staff and resources that they freely provide. When East Point, Michigan implemented their ranked choice voting in 2017, I think, the Ranked Choice Voting's Resource Center's General Counsel came to Michigan and in person over weeks worked with East Point City Clerk to help them implement ranked choice voting so that they didn't have to do it alone. Ranked choice voting has only grown since 2017, so there's even more resources to help jurisdictions implement it. And I'll send these comments to you all and to Clerk Borling on that. Again, thank you for your service and thank you for your support of this charter amendment.
Thank you so much. Next, please. All set. Anyone else in the chambers who wants to comment on this item? Seeing no one. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt. Let me see. What's our title for this here? Adopt the resolution. Motion made by Vice Mayor Cooney, supported by Commissioner Juarez. All right. Discussion, commissioners. We sort of jumped on that. I don't know if you want to get back on, Commissioner Pradel? No? Others? Commissioner Decker? No? Okay. So I will say one more thing about this. So just as a reminder, to a certain extent, the commission has no choice. This is how our charter is written. You know, we just put it on the ballot. I mean, already over 3,000 registered voters in the city have asked us to do this, so this is a bit perfunctory as far as that goes. Yeah, which is great. Yeah, one thing, you know, Deacon Pat, I just want to follow up on. I get that, just voting for one person, but for me, I might be able to. Right now, I just want to put this out there, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. If I like what 3 incumbents are doing, and I want everyone back, I've got 3 number 1 votes. Presumably, this would force me into a situation where I'd have to say one of the incumbents is going to get number 1, one of these will get number 2, and one of these will get number 3. I believe that is, I believe that is a reduction, not an addition in choice, in my personal feeling about it. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit, so I appreciate it. No other discussion, I presume. Clerk Borling, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The resolution is approved. Manager Ritzma, former item G6, Safe Streets.
Acceptance of a Safe Streets for All grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation in the amount of $750,000.
Is there someone you think should have that? Well, who is that someone?
That would be our Public Services Director, James Baker.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, City Manager, Vice Mayor, City Commission. Just provide some background on this topic. This is a grant opportunity for City Kalamazoo. This is a $750,000 grant, and then there's a local match, so that total expenditure would be just over $1 million for it. This item, really focuses on a lot of the efforts that we have been doing to provide safe streets for all. It's a grant comprising 2 parts. One of those is a planning aspect where we look at traffic studies, traffic signal corridor studies, crash data analysis, and kind of review some of the strategies and programs that we've had put in place already. The next phase of this grant would be actual projects where we implement some of that work in various areas. Just to talk through a little bit on the Vision Zero approach, I know there's been some comments on that, perhaps some questions, within the community. A Vision Zero approach, really from a policy level, identifies and seeks to reduce serious injury crashes, fatality crashes, with improvements in roadway and in infrastructure. And so it certainly recognizes that, we're not going to step away from cars. It doesn't punish cars. That's not the intent of it. Really, the intent is to, from a policy level, really look at every single fatal crash and every single serious crash and really strive to improve roadway design, enforcement, and education to combat those problems. There's some other communities that are doing this work, like Kalamazoo. Grand Rapids has had a Vision Zero policy and action plan since 2018. Ann Arbor has had a Vision Zero policy and action plan since 2021. I don't have an exhaustive list of all Michigan communities that do or do not have a Vision Zero action plan, but I just wanted to provide some local examples for context. There's been a lot of discussion on traffic calming, I think, here recently. Certainly there's some bold things we're doing in regards to that aspect. Kalamazoo City streets have remained virtually unchanged for the last 59 years. Our work in traffic calming is very new. We've been at this work when we started down this road about 5 years ago in 2018. There's been some things that have been very successful. I would say speed bumps have been very successful in and around our neighborhoods. I would say most of our core neighborhoods are, really benefiting from reduced speeds from speed bumps, and that's been something that we continue to hear positive support from neighborhood leaders and from neighborhood residents. There's some things that haven't worked so well. Chicanes is one example of something that we came out in the north side and had a public meeting at Lord Crone Park to demonstrate and show what a good tool chicane was. And at that very meeting, we had somebody come through, probably 60 miles an hour through the chicane, and to which point the crowd of folks erupted into, not laughter, but, for some call to action from the city to, do something different. So I think, as we go through this work, it's important to note that we're not getting it right every single time. There are adjustments needed in policy. There are adjustments needed to understand where the comfort level is of our community and community members, and that we want to continue to implement strategies, policies, and programs that are making our streets safer and that are, accepted and celebrated by our community members. So I'll pause there and certainly turn it back to city commissioners for any additional comment or clarification that we could make here.
Thank you, Director Baker. Questions for Director Baker? Yes, Vice Mayor Cooney.
Director Baker, where would that $260,000 come from?
I believe that would come from our Act 51 dollars from our major streets pot of money. So that would be, out of our major streets fund.
Other questions for Director Baker? Yes, Commissioner Decker.
No, I'll put it up in the comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
So, yeah, I took us down the wrong path. I'm sorry. Questions for Director Baker now, and then we'll get to comments later. So I just want to make sure I didn't throw everybody off by my own behavior.
Director Baker, so, within the Vision Zero, as we heard earlier today, from what the research that I have done, and I'm hoping that you can talk about this, with the Vision Zero community, again, it says exactly what you said. Eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe, it's a strategy to eliminate traffic fatalities, severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. And when you think about the city's sustainability plan that we have implemented, how do you think this also works with us trying to hit net zero emissions by a certain point? Because as of right now, within our sustainability plan, we are at zero. We're not doing anything for net zero emissions, but we have a goal of 200%. So how do you think this plan is going to correlate with that plan? And then also, as you said, we are new at this, so we are still learning. So getting funds and getting grants is going to help our traffic engineers and our planning department and public works kind of work together and build a cohesive strategy to do this. What could you say to that?
No, thank you very much, Commissioner Decker. This is, some great concepts, some great questions. We've got a sustainability plan that's relatively new. Some of the things we're looking at is, reducing the vehicle emissions of our fleet, like a net zero approach to vehicle emissions. And are we there today, right now? Certainly not. But we are taking steps to get there. One of the things that this city commission has approved was a biodiesel program for all of our heavy duty fleet. That biodiesel program has reduced our carbon emissions from our heavy duty fleet by over 8% annually. So that's a step in the right direction. We're also working on, it's not out right now, but we're putting together an IFB. That's an invitation for bid, bureaucratic mumbo jumbo we're going to put something out to bid for electric vehicle chargers. We're starting to understand what type of technology we will need for electric vehicle chargers for not only public services, but other departments. It's also not out there yet, but either late this year or in 2024, public services will be receiving 2 electric vehicle Silverados to demonstrate within the department, to understand the functionality and use in a vocational assignment to see if that vehicle can meet our needs. So there's a lot of kind of smoke before there's fire, so to speak, with those big overarching plans like a sustainability plan where the goal is net zero. We're very close to almost immeasurable action today. I just named a few things that are, although they're great steps in the right direction, they're not a total reduction, and it's not a holistic reduction overnight, but we're moving in those directions. I would say some of the same approaches would be used with a Vision Zero approach as it applies to traffic fatalities and major and significant injuries. Just take one traffic crash, for example, one fatality. If we study that and learn that speed was a contributing factor to that crash, could there be improvements made to reduce speed? And maybe there are roadway changes or enhancements that could be done. Maybe a speed bump could be put on that street that would have helped to reduce speed, that could have helped reduce the severity of that crash risk, which could have potentially saved a life. So really the Vision Zero approach can find success even when it's not 100% successful.
Thank you for that explanation. I did a little bit of research of this on my own. And again, it did populate in Sweden, but it also kind of goes with the 5 pillars that the UN Global Plan has put into place for the action for road safety, and that was put into place in the 2011. And they talk about the 5 pillars. It's road safety management, safer roads and mobility, safer vehicles, safer road users, and post-crash response. And I think that getting a grant to help us improve our streets and to do the studies and to give our team what they need to really plan things out, I think is going to make it better for the city. We have done things that worked and did not work. But again, as you said, this is trial and error. We've only been doing this for 5 years. So I feel that with these funds going forward and actually accepting these funds going forward, we're going to be able to become more educated and become more cohesive in the plan that we're doing as we're doing our streets. I did want to address one thing with putting this in the plan and to having the, what is it called here? Just a moment. Sorry, there's a lot of paperwork in here. I would ask, and again, I know these are questions, Mayor, but I just want to make sure I say this. City Manager Ritzma, I know that there needs to be, I would hope that we would be able to put with Public Works team and our engineers, a committee together that would be working on this. I know a lot of it is done by leadership, but I think also having some input from our community also, I think would be very beneficial to that, because I know that, at a certain time, once we take these funds, I believe it is in 2025, we will have to adopt that policy or review that policy. So I just wanted to put that out there that maybe we could definitely incorporate individuals, community members also with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Questions for Director Baker at this time? Commissioner Juarez and then Commissioner Hess.
Yes, I just have a couple questions. Is it your department's intentions to use this money to attain Vision Zero?
No, it's the department's intention to utilize this money to study and to work towards the creation of a policy and understand better than we do know what strategies would help to get us down that pathway. So it would be work in planning and study, things like doing like traffic studies, traffic signal corridor studies. So like engineering study work. There also, these dollars would go towards some smaller scale projects, things like mini roundabouts, non-motorized facility improvements, and things like bike lanes. That being said, this amount of dollars is going to program, it's going to get spent. And then once it's spent, the goal is to have a Vision Zero action plan and Vision Zero policy that, you know, could live on into the future as well.
Is it your department's intentions to keep the residents of Kalamazoo safe?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Is it your department's intentions to use money to do that comes from the federal government?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that sometimes in strategies, there is unforeseen situations that happen that cause you to change strategies?
Certainly.
Okay. In your opinion, do you believe that we could get to a place with not just resources, money, because you mentioned different variables that cause accidents. One being speeding, another impaired drivers, another just unsafe access to crossings, lighting, there's a lot of things. So with the resource that you have here, is it your intentions to find more resources to make our streets safe?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Commissioner Prado. Well, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hess, and then Commissioner Prado.
So, I do have a question, but I'm wondering how many of us get in a car determined to go the speed limit our entire trip? How many of us do that? No, you do, Don? Oh, good for you. It has to be the intention of the drivers. So that said, we can use physical barriers to slow vehicles down. How are we going to use this money? And I think Commissioner Juarez alluded to it. How much of this money will be used in an educational and cultural shift campaign for the drivers? It's really hard. I mean, I have to set my cruise control to go the speed limit when there are no other cars on the road. But now knowing the statistics and crash data that I do, there has to be a cultural and a psychological shift in the mind of our drivers in this town. I really think that the two-lane roads are going to help with that, that we won't have these highways going through the middle of our streets or the middle of our town. But, you know, how much is going to be spent on an educational kind of campaign that helps our drivers understand the effects of their driving, and myself included?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, you know, Commissioner Hess, I think, you know, you've heard us say many times in the past that traffic safety is a three-legged stool comprised of engineering, enforcement, and education. And then, you know, we added to that stool community as kind of to wrap your arms around it, to keep each of those individual pillars kind of in place and guided, so to speak. And then, you know, I would also echo that policy is part of community, because there's a lot of back and forth action in that. So that education piece, that community piece, and how do those tie together, that has to be part of this. I know that's something that our traffic team with Dennis and George and Anthony, they're you know, really keyed into. That's something where we've been working with community planning and economic development to get out into neighborhoods, to go to, you know, everything from National Night Out to, you know, neighborhood association meetings, and to work with our community together as we embrace education and a piece of it as well. So that is part of it, and that has to be part of it and continue to be part of it.
Commissioner Brado.
Director Baker, thanks for being here. I apologize for all the questions, but, you know, I think it's helpful for public to hear some of these things. I hope you don't mind, but Commissioner Juarez and I, as both children of the early 90s, we kind of refer you to the municipal equivalent to Captain Planet. So we know you give us a good answer to things and whatnot. We mean that in the kindest way. But I did have a couple questions for you. There was a gentleman who got up during public comment to speak on this matter. We received a document from him as well. In your assessment as an expert in this field and an engineer, would you describe this passage of the $750 as a radical or drastic change in street policies?
No, I would not. You know, and I would remind the commission that, you know, we've got a complete streets policy and a complete streets committee. There's been a tremendous amount of work and effort done through this administration to include the Community Planning and Economic Development Department to really focus on all this great work that we're doing. And, you know, this effort that we've been going through for traffic calming has been a pathway that we've been on for about 5 years now. And so there's been, again, a lot of great work there. You know, one of the things that we've looked at across entire city of Kalamazoo is an overall 5% reduction in crashes, with as much as high as 8% reduction in crashes in some specific corridors. And so that speaks positively to our progress in our direction. And I will say, not everything works. You know, we've been wrong. Some things you heard me address just recently, the chicanes that never happened. You know, there's a lot of discussion right now about a project on Winchell that's not going to be implemented the way we discussed implementing it, you know, a month or two ago. So, you know, we're, you know, doing these actions, we're being extremely bold. And I think, you know, at times we might have to pull back. At times we may need some correction. And at times we may need to hear more from the community in terms of comfort levels and where, you know, folks really see their non-negotiables at. But overall, we're dedicated and committed, and we're going to continue to focus and do this work. And it's something that we've been in line with and online with for about 5 years now.
You mentioned two examples of initiatives that we were trying to pilot, but we decided, you know, pushed back. The individual who was here to comment also said that he feels that there is no city voice and no inquiry by the commission. Do you feel that's an accurate reflection based on those two examples you described?
I would have to disagree. I think the commission's been very involved in this work, and I think the community members, you know, have been willing to reach out to us, have been, you know, very open and very direct in their communications out. And so, again, I thank the City Commission for their involvement and for their continued involvement. So thank you.
You described two examples. The first example being the chicane I was at, that number of us were at. There were probably over 100 people there. You described the reaction of the crowd when somebody sped by at 60 miles per hour or something like that. We have a River's Edge project where another additional probably 100 plus people showed up to. We have a mayor who went out with a measuring tape to measure the road and then went to compare it to a street in the city. That seems like a pretty involved city commission to me. Also seems like a pretty involved community providing input and then us responding. So I just wanted to make sure to note that. And lastly, do you think the statement, "Our beautiful streets are too important not to be designed by engineers," is a fair statement?
You know, I guess I apologize. I don't fully understand the context and the background of that. You know, I would say that it takes a community. You know, we talked about the three-legged stool, engineer, enforcement, education, and then community, you know, wrapped around it. So, you know, if engineers are implementing things or if we're heading in a direction that the community or the commission does not want to see us go, we, you know, can be corrected. And we've given plenty of examples of where that correction has occurred, and we're always happy and excited to, you know, continue this work. It's our goal to see a safe community, a happy community, and a thriving community.
I appreciate that. I definitely feel that, and I do appreciate the ability to respond to community when we are off course or maybe need to correct course. And I think that's an important component to this work as well, and needs to be acknowledged as well. But you look at the packet, it identifies things: ADA accessibility and pedestrian safety research, sidewalk analysis to figure out where we need to repair and fill gaps, bus stop safety, corridor lighting studies, signal and cycle and push button upgrades. Those seem like pretty reasonable things to me, and I'm going to sleep just fine tonight after passing this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. So any other questions for Director Baker at this time? Question?
So you mentioned the stool with 3 legs and then the extra leg being community. And with those 4 things, and then you think about just, you know, a little bit above $1 million being put towards this. Is this enough to make our streets safe and our residents safe?
You know, certainly we're always looking for additional resources where we can get them. Again, safety, a true focus on safety, go into all those details we talked about. You know, there really does need to be more funding, you know, put towards this. And there's something that, you know, goes without saying is that, you know, if we can prevent just one fatality, then, you know, we've certainly done a great job. And we're going to continue to do a great job. So we're happy to have these dollars, but by no means is this enough to keep us, you know, completely going and implementing all safety strategies.
Okay, I just got yes or no answers right here. Do you believe that preschool educators should design our roads?
No.
Do you believe that me or Chris Prado or anybody up here should design our roads?
No, you should have input, but not design.
Do you believe Chief Boyson should design our roads?
I'd say input. I'd also have to correct it. You know, MCL 257 has extraordinary circumstances for powers of police, and the powers of police do have overriding powers, you know, for traffic signals and other things. So that's a qualified at times for Chief Boyson.
In your professional opinion, why do we pay somebody a salary to design roads?
So the city charter actually requires us to have a traffic engineer, and that was, you know, something put into place by, city attorney. I don't know how or why always a city charter item may be found in there, but once it's in there, I'll reference it from time to time as, you know, kind of the why something is. But a traffic engineer is part of our city charter.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Prado. Any other questions? Sorry, Commissioner Juarez. Losing track of things here. All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Director Baker. Appreciate it. Now is the opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item. Is there anybody who would like to comment on this particular acceptance of this grant? Seeing no one in the chambers. Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to accept the Safe Streets for All grant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Hess. Discussion. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two problems with this thing. First of all, I don't think the main killer, the purpose of this grant is to stop people being killed on our streets. I don't think the main thing that's killing people on our streets is traffic. I think the main thing killing people on our streets is violence and poverty. And if we can find $260,000 additional to put into this, I find that hard. We can't find it to spend on the other stuff. Secondly, I don't know, I must have different experience than a lot of people, because I'm hearing from a lot of the community that things are happening in my neighborhood that on my street that I don't want to see happen. I can't park in front of my house. We're getting one-lane highways that don't make any sense to me. We're having all these different kinds of roundabouts that police vehicles can't get around. I'm hearing a lot. There's two kinds of expertise. I'm not going to be a traffic engineer. I'm not going to be designing streets. But there's another kind of expertise. And people are the expertise, they have the expertise in their own lives. And my job as a city commissioner is to reflect that expertise and put that before the people. So I have one of two proposals. First of all, I would propose that we don't vote on this tonight, that we put this off for 2 weeks. There's no problem here in time let's hear from the community what they think about this. And I'm not sure that we should be spending that $260,000 on it. But secondly, if we do spend it, there are 3 parts to the proposal. One part is analysis and proposal. The second part is implementation of pilot programs. Commissioner Prado was talking about fixing streets and stuff like that. Here's what I'm reading in terms of pilot programs. Mini roundabouts in 3 different neighborhoods. A pilot 2-way cycle track on one major street and on another. Pilot at least 2 locations of protected bike facilities. I think we ought to ask the people about that. So if we do pass this, I would say before any pilot programs are enacted, we must get the consent of the people in that neighborhood and the city commission before any of those pilot things would take place. So I propose that we put off a vote on this until 2 weeks from now so that we could hear from the people on this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. Other discussion? Commissioner Prater?
Appreciate your comments, Vice Mayor Cooney, and I have tremendous respect for you. I mean, you're my, idol in this work. I think the one thing that I would caution is that we can do this work and still achieve what you're describing. I think Director Baker gave a couple examples of 2 examples, and I would argue we went too long without responding. I would argue that in those cases, people had to fight and champion too long for their distaste for the chicanes or for whatever. But, you look at a lot of this money in terms of the planning and the execution. I think that planning and execution work in terms of planning should include that community input and listening to the public and whatnot. In terms of impact on vulnerable populations, disproportionately, the research shows that vulnerable populations are disproportionately impacted by vehicular crash accidents when they're pedestrian on bikes. And so, it is going to disproportionately impact vulnerable populations if we don't institute modes that are going to slow down traffic or do those things. And so I guess my thought process is I think we can achieve both things. I don't think they have to be exclusionary, that we necessarily either don't have to pass this or do pass this and by-step the whole public. I think if we do this right, we do this work, but do it in tandem by doing a better job of listening to the public and being more responsive to the public when we do start to hear from them and concern about it. And avoid kind of that stubbornness of digging our heels in when neighborhoods or streets are saying to us that they don't like something. That would be my thought.
Commissioner Decker? Well, I'll just give everybody a first shot. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I agree with some of the points that you are also saying, Vice Mayor Cooney, and also Commissioner Praedel. And again, I think that is kind of why I made the notion of speaking with City Manager Ritzma and Director Baker about when we start to do these things to have a committee, have the community, the residents also on that committee. Maybe we need to take a look at, Vice Mayor Cooney, you're talking about the pilots. Again, really getting, as we do, get the input on where those pilots should be and things like that. I think that the grant is to help us understand how to design our streets to keep our community and our residents safe. I do agree that $260,000 is a lot of money. Maybe we could find it somewhere else. Maybe we couldn't. I don't know. We're going to accept this grant. It's not saying that we have to take that $260 right now and put it into this. If we get these federal funds, then, Director Baker and his team have been awesome at finding other funds to do what we need to do within the streets and the city. So I agree with both of you guys, but I don't think that we should not try to make our streets safer, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean. I think, Again, with the pilots, yeah, let's have the communities in there. I'm looking at some of these things right here on, what some of these funds are going to be going for. Pedestrian intersection safety analysis and plan development. You have to plan, you have to get those numbers, you have to get that data before you can do certain things. Sidewalk safety improvement. I just had a lady the other day said she fell flat on her face and, busted her eyes and her glasses because the sidewalk was uneven there. Talk about the bus safety improvement plan, key corridor lighting. There's lots of places that I could say within my neighborhood that need more lighting. It's analyzing where certain things should be. Updated intersection crash analysis and prioritized plan for signal, cycle, and push button upgrades. I've heard community members say sometimes that when they're on their bikes or when they're walking, that the lights aren't timed right. This is gonna help us plan that to keep individuals safe on the streets. Combination of presentations and results. That's, the information that we get, going back and talking to the community. This is what we found. This is the data that we have. Neighborhood mini roundabout traffic calming countermeasure pilot. Again, pilots that you can talk with the community about, talk with the residents in that area. Two-way cycle track countermeasure pilot, same thing. Protected bike facilities countermeasure, same thing. Small scale traffic calming initiative. This is again addressing the speeding and the safety concerns. Every time you can lower the speed of a vehicle, the chances of someone surviving a crash is going to go up. Defining and using zones for low-cost pedestrian safety measures. Pilot, that's going to be funded by the NHTSA, which is the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. Shared use pathway for non-motorized safety. Again, doing the feasibility study so we have the data. In my eyes, I think we should accept this. We should put some of these into place, start working on these, get the data that we need. Again, as Commissioner Prado says, have some of the community, or have the community within the neighborhoods, give their input. Have someone on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. I guess I may be one of the lone detractors here. There are many days where I don't feel safe on our streets, particularly on the north side where I very rarely do I see anyone utilizing the bicycle lanes on a bike. And the other piece is that when I think about coming north on Park Street where the new Justice Center will be, the way that bike lane is, and I've seen like almost 10 people get hit because the bikes don't know who has the right of way, the cars don't understand who has the right of way. And for me, it's very confusing. We had residents from the north side earlier this year come to the commission and say they were never notified or didn't have any community engagement once the bike lanes were put in. And I believe that because I did not receive anything either. And so when I think about community engagement and I think about the mini circles, my 3 mini circles, my mind immediately goes to our priority in our urban core neighborhoods, the south side, the east side, and the north side, where we're always using those neighborhoods as guinea pigs. And so if this is going to happen, one, not everybody feels safe on our streets with the bike lanes and everything right now, because there's a lot of confusion. And we add on the construction that's happening. So there are a lot of things going on, and I do agree with you, Vice Mayor, that this is big, and we need more information. And I understand that studies need to be done. That's a lot of money for a study, and I get it, but not everybody is feeling safe. And I don't know how this $750 will make me personally feel safer when I'm coming off of North Rose and turning on to Westnedge on the north side. There's always something happening because the traffic gets jammed up there with the addition of the bike lanes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Juarez.
Yes. I think if we wanted to allocate more money to gun violence, we can do that simply through ARPA request. I think that's an easy move we can do. When it comes to the communities I live in, and where I live on Washington, we put speed bumps in that area that reduce the speed tremendously. Now, Chris, he pointed to the communities that are disproportionately affected the most. When we think about pilots and projects and all these, beautification and this money we have, we see those go into more prominent neighborhoods like Windshield, like Bronson, and places where, like my street needs more lighting. I can name 10 streets right now in the Edison neighborhood that you could put this $1 million+ to make a difference. If people don't want that money spent in their neighborhood, bring it to my neighborhood, to the north side, into the east side. There is deteriorating sidewalks on the east side, on that hill on East Main, that people hurt themselves all the time. I don't believe we need pilot programs. I believe you need to invest that money into those communities to make them better. Kids can now ride their bikes on my street because of those speed bumps. And you just heard community members from Reed Street. I can name you 10 to 15 streets right now where they race their cars up and down those streets. I can name you 10 or 15 streets on each side of the neighborhood that need more lighting to make our streets safer. I can name you 5 streets right now that need roundabouts because people are doing donuts in the middle of the damn intersection. I live in a reality where my neighborhood doesn't have enough money to make it better. And if people in Windshield, Bronson, wherever don't want stuff happening in their communities, bring that money to the Edison, the north side and the east side. Bring it to us. I'll tell you where you can spend that money. And I can tell you that you ain't gonna need a pilot program to see what's gonna happen or how to make it better. Because the people who are the poorest get the shit end of the stick. And I am tired of it. We're talking about poverty? We're talking about injustices? We're talking about systematic racism? When they put those calming traffic reflector things up Maple, because that hill, and I get it, but my street needs it. Paint the lines on my street. Do that all through the Edison, the north side, the east side. I truly believe if people are fighting against not bringing stuff to their community, then let's hear them. Sure. Fine. You don't want it in your community? Fine. I know 3 communities that actually really need it. And I know that you can spend every bit of that $1 million+ right now to make these neighborhoods safer immediately. You don't need a pilot program. You don't need a study to be done. So, I mean, if we can reallocate that money instead of using it for studies and pilot programs and actually put it into fruition for these streets to be safer in these core areas, that would be a lot better. I would recommend we do that instead of taking this money and use it for pilot program and studies and all that stuff. Because we're not going to be judged on what we know. We're going to be judged on what we do. And again, black and brown communities suffer the most. So if you want, you can bring that $1 million+ over here to Edison.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Manager Isma?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in here on a couple of things. First, from a staff perspective, we have policies that were adopted by the City Commission. So we are implementing those policies that were adopted by the City Commission. If this commission wants to change policies, I think that's the discussion that needs to occur. The complete streets policy. We have a public participation policy on how we engage the public. It's not always forming a committee. Sometimes, I got the engagement plan right up here. It specifically says for street design, we collaborate with the community. Engagement meetings, focus groups, pop-up table, post-construction surveys. These are already things decided by the commission that staff are following. If we're going to change the game here, we need to have those discussions and you're allowed to have discussions on anything, but I think we're picking around the edges of a broader discussion that needs to occur around complete streets and public engagement and how we do our business as a city.
I have a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
A question for City Manager Ritzma. So the grant is for $750,000. That is not out of our city budget. And then Director Baker mentioned that it comes from Act 51, our major streets.
Correct.
Can you help with that? And tell us where that
Yeah.
could else be spent? Could that be spent on other initiatives throughout the city?
So the Act 51 dollars come to us from the state. They're distributed based on formula from the sales tax on, or fuel tax, the state levies. We get Act 51 dollars for major streets and for local streets. It was identified that, about major streets here related to this particular funding. Those dollars can only be used for street funding. Now, there's a lot of activities within that are permissible, construction, maintenance, and all of that. So, as far as finding other dollars, if we were to look at other places, we're talking about impacting general fund dollars. So these funds are designated for street projects, just like water is designated for water, sewer for sewer. So I would say that the only thing that those dollars could have been used for were some other, maintenance or capital construction.
Thank you. And Don, I don't disagree that we need to work on poverty. However, in talking to the bike community here in Kalamazoo, they were afraid before we began this work. The work is not complete. It's complete streets. The work of putting bike lanes in our city isn't complete. People see the bike lanes and they don't see anybody in the bike lanes because the bikers still aren't ready to be out there. I've heard from the planning department that it could take up to 4 or 5 years before people feel comfortable being in the streets, and the people are still speeding, and the cars are still not going the speed limit. So I would rather see us take and use this money for educational purposes, for calming that traffic, for doing what we have to do to make all of our people safe.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, City Manager, I don't think I'm trying to change any policy. I'm saying that we're not doing a great job collaborating with the community. I think there's a lot of people in the community who feel that we're not talking to them, that we got experts who are saying, this is what we need to do, and we're going to do it. And then they do it, and the people in the neighborhood say, what happened here? I don't like this. That's what I'm saying. Secondly, we don't need $1 million to say we need all that stuff in Edison on the north side. We know that. We don't need to spend $1 million to do that. And if we spend $1 million, we're going to be looking at these other neighborhoods. We're going to be looking at these other things. I think we should be looking at these neighborhoods that need these things and putting the money in. And we don't need to go out and get $1 million to do that. We know what needs to be done. I think we ought to get busy at that. So look, this could work if we agree, for me anyway, this is me, if we agree that let's do the study, let's focus on the most needed neighborhoods about what needs to be done. Let's propose pilot programs, but only with the collaboration of people in the neighborhood, and then come back to the commission and show that we've done that and we can approve it.
I'd support that.
Just want to make sure that Mr. Decker, did you?
Just a real quick question. Is there a time frame in us accepting these funds?
I didn't hear that. What?
Is there a time frame within which we have to accept this grant?
We'd have to look into that.
No. It says right in the grant that we don't have to do that until January 15th.
Okay.
There you go.
I think January 15th is when we have to have it approved and final plan put together for 2025. Is that correct?
Actually, look, Jim, 2024. 2024. October of 2024.
A delay for a meeting or so would not impact this.
Thank you.
Is the $250,000 contingent, like us putting that from the Act 51 contingent on getting the $750,000? So we have to put that $250?
Yeah, that's our match.
Okay, that's our match to the $750,000, okay.
Commissioner Praedel?
I think one of the challenges about the community input in the next couple of weeks is that you might have a community that disproportionately reaches out that's been impacted. So like Winchell is, rightfully kind of wound up right now about some of the recent things that we've seen happen. So they might be more reactionary to, say, the Edison neighborhood reaching out. And so I guess I'd be curious to kind of articulate or think through like how to think through which neighborhoods may want the support in that short amount of time. The other thing I was going to mention as well is that I think I'll go back to this again. We need to have a conversation to decide as a group, or maybe this is part with the administration of deciding like how far to dig our heels in on things, right? I think the Edge Road is a good example of that, or Asylum Lake parking. I think in those instances, when you have 200 or 300 people who show up and share that they feel a strong way about it, what does it say to you if you feel like you're showing up in those kind of numbers and you don't respond, if you don't show that you're willing to work or strategize to come up with creative solutions to that? And I think that's where the frustration is coming from areas of our community where people feel like, look, like what else do you want from us? Like, do I need 500 people here instead of 445? Do I need to show up 3 times instead of 2? I think that's worth having some of that conversation to figure out, like, when do we have these situations where we say, we need to seriously reconsider this or recalibrate. But I also don't think that should necessarily paint the whole city's strategy, because like Esto, you're saying, there are communities with open arms that are ready and willing to take this and do this work. And so I don't know, I see both points. I think you're spot on about what you're saying, but I also think that there are going to be times where maybe you try something and people aren't happy, and that's okay. And if we're doing it right, we'll stop those projects like we did in the Chicanes, or we stopped the project at the river's edge. I think we can do both things. I think they can be achieved in both ways. And I think the only difference is that we got to find some middle ground where those areas where we're digging in our heels. That's all.
More? Vice Mayor Cooney?
The only thing I would say is, I would be willing to go along with this if we said that we are going to use this money to focus on the 3 neediest neighborhoods in the city to see what they need with regard to making their streets safer, and that before any pilot projects are implemented, that there is strong community collaboration with this, and that it comes to the commission to say that we agree with that happened. Look, the best way that we could do this would be to take the expertise that these people have, which is undeniable, and the expertise of the people in the community, and put them together. I think that would be the best.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Cooney. So I have a question for staff here. The normal process in a grant application is you apply for it, and when you apply, you propose, a particular plan, which is, I presume, that came from city staff, that the plan was to do certain things, and then based on the plan that was proposed, you then receive, the opportunity to be awarded money. One portion of it is that you're matching it. So that if the receipt of this grant is based on a particular plan that was proposed in the application, then that gives us less flexibility about what to do with it ultimately at the end. So my question is that the case? Is this the receipt of this based on a plan that we wrote and proposed?
I don't know.
Who's going to know?
Baker. So this is the acceptance of a grant. So we've already applied for it.
Yes.
And it's been accepted. So now we're submitting, or we're accepting the grant. So I'm thinking that when we applied for the grant, we submitted the plan for the grant.
Correct. So I apologize for going into this level of detail. I have been texting with staff to try to get some more clarity on, some of these, great questions that have come up. One of the first things, we can delay, so there's no pending date certain deadline. So if this is delayed and brought back at a future commission meeting, that's fine. We've got the timeline to do that. The next question regarding, is the plan flexible, and, can we tweak it to focus, perhaps more specifically on core neighborhoods? My understanding is that the flexibility is there. We can change, kind of where some of these strategies are focused. It's my understanding that it's a broad plan in context, and that if the commission desired to, provide some more focus, that the opportunity may be there. I would probably have to clarify that before we get there, but that's kind of my direction where we're at right now.
Commissioner Morris?
Yeah,
And then
so
Commissioner Decker.
I know that there's not a timeline to receive and to allocate, but how soon can we get that money and put it into practice?
That's a great question. My understanding would be the dollars would be coming in 2024, and implementation would occur in 2024. I don't believe that dollars would be coming in 23, for implementation outside of just study. So
Okay. Yeah, I asked that because it's like we have flexibility in the time to make a decision, but also we have to understand that the more time we spend trying to figure out what we need to do with it or get it, that could cause more things to happen in our streets. I mean,
well, I think the commission's got some flexibility here, some autonomy. Just for perspective, we're not bidding any new construction projects like tomorrow that are going to complete this year. So even things that we brought toward, just like Westnedge, the city commission took action on that, but that was out to bid in January. So if we're going to be inventing, new designs and things like that, that is and was going to occur in 24. So delaying for, a few weeks for us to kind of get our strategy and plan together, in my opinion, wouldn't have any adverse effect on your ability to implement projects.
Okay, thank you. George. Vice Mayor Cooney.
One more thing. I'm just reading the proposal as it's written by the federal government. And all over the plan, it talks about equity and reaching out to disadvantaged communities. So I'll just read you this one thing. This is an action plan grant and has not yet begun construction. These activities include extensive community engagement, implementation of several of the proposed pilot activities within disadvantaged areas of our community, and solicitation of feedback from diverse stakeholders to determine the effectiveness of these pilot activities.
I think that sounds like what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I just want to I want to make sure people get a chance. So, Commissioner Decker.
No, I'm just going to reiterate what Vice Mayor Cooney says. What he just read was the supporting narrative, which is, I believe, is what we would have sent within our application to the government, correct?
So
Dr.
I'm
Baker?
going to make a, sorry to interrupt here, I'm just going to make a suggestion. I think, we are, deeply delving into this here on the dais, which is good. I think there's a few questions and clarifications out there. So I don't, rather than, the pressure of here digging through this and making sure we're clear about what we're voting on, I mean, is everybody comfortable just with the idea of giving us 2 weeks, putting on the next agenda? There's been a lot of questions asked. There's opportunity for staff to delve more deeply and be a little clearer to have those answers instead of just trying to rush those answers right now. Does that seem like is the commission okay with the idea of that?
I mean, given, just glancing through it right now with Dr. Cooney, I'm prepared to vote yes on this.
Okay.
As I.
Same here.
It's aye.
You too.
Okay. Well, all right. Fine. So, any other discussion then? Commissioner Hess.
I don't think that it precludes us from asking city staff to continue to engage community, to ask that we use these grant funds for our SBK neighborhoods, for our core neighborhoods, for the betterment of those neighborhoods. So I don't see that in there.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Any more discussion? Commissioner Hoffman.
Mayor, does anyone in the chambers have the opportunity to make a comment, or have we passed that time already?
We had that time already.
Oh, okay.
Other discussion, commissioners? We had that public comment period time. Okay. I'm kind of willing to do that, but then how often do we do that? And what if there's 20 people that want to come up? So we had the public comment period on this. I asked everybody who was here in the room if they wanted to comment. I don't want to be too hard about it, but we had that. That's the process. That's how it works. So you had an opportunity to comment. Okay, yeah. Any other discussion from commission? All right. Clerk Borland, please call the roll. I'm sorry. Well, we had the commission, the recommended action motion to accept the resolution, and there was support, there was a motion made and it was supported, and then we're in discussion on the motion, which was the recommended action was the motion to accept the Safe Streets for All grant. So it's just we're voting on accepting the grant.
Accepting the grant, but we're going to have further discussion on how we're going to use the grant?
So, that was why I offered the possibility that we want to talk about it more before we vote on it.
We
but
said we were going
no, that's what I offered. But Commissioner Hoffman then said, I'm ready to vote yes after reading this.
Yeah, that's.
So there was not.
We're going to do the intensive community engagement.
Okay.
So Vice Mayor, I kind of offered the possibility, do we want to push this off? Looking just for kind of a general consensus, not a vote. The general consensus wasn't there for that.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm voting on what I'm voting on, that we're voting on, there's an agreement that we're going to focus on the poorest neighborhoods, and that we're going to do intensive community engagement in that. Is right? Okay. Good. Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah.
All right. So, motion's on the floor. And it's been supported, it's been made and supported. Clerk Borland, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Decker?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion to accept the grant is approved. Next, we have reports and legislation. Manager Risma.
I have no report this evening,
All right,
Your Honor.
thank you so much. All right, so now we are down to J, which is unfinished business. This is item J1, Manager Risma.
Approval of the mayor's reappointment of Robert Salisbury to the Investment Committee of the entire Employees Retirement System for a term expiring on March 31, 2026, and approval of a waiver of City Commission Rules 12E regarding term limits and 12K regarding residency.
Thank you, Manager Risma. Commissioner Decker.
City Attorney Leo, if you could go over what we missed in our committee of the whole meeting?
Most certainly, Commissioner. Mayor, Commission, if you can scroll back, I included a memorandum for you, a written memorandum to help you with this discussion and possible decision. It's in the Committee of the Whole backup. It was your second work session item. I'll go over just briefly and try to get to the meat as what we have here is, again, this item regarding the reappointment of Robert Salisbury to the Retirement Investment Committee has come back at this meeting. As you recall, at your July 17th meeting, it was postponed so that the city attorney could perform some research regarding an issue involving Mr. Salisbury's Kalamazoo residency status. During that meeting, there was reference to Section 12 or Rule 12K of the city's commission rules for conducting meetings. Rule 12 applies to all city boards and commissions, and specifically 12K, the second sentence provides all members of boards or commissions shall be residents of the city of Kalamazoo unless otherwise provided by statute, ordinance, or by the bylaws of such a particular board or commission, in which case a majority of the members of such boards or commissions shall be city residents. So at that meeting, there were two questions that were asked me to look into, and there was a third one that I subsequently thought of after the meeting. I'll address the questions in order and then the answer. So the first question is there a statute, ordinance, or provision in the Retirement Investment Committee's bylaws that does not require committee members to be city residents? The answer to that question is no. There's not a statute that talks about the actual residency of this type of committee. The Retirement Investment Committee does not have a set of bylaws. And then but we do have an ordinance that does, it's sections 2-252.1 and 2. It talks about the qualifications for the members of the Retirement Investment Committee. However, there's not a residency requirement. So in answer to the first question, is there a statute or that does not require the committee members to be city residents? There is none. The second question that was asked is, can the commission use Rule 16 to waive the residency requirement? Rule 16 of your city commission rules provides any city commission rule may be waived by a simple majority vote of the commission. The effect of a waiver is limited to the meeting wherein the waiver was granted. So as this rule provides, it can be used to waive any of the other rules in the city commission rules, including the second sentence of Rule 12K by a simple majority vote. As additional support of this reasoning, the first sentence in 12K allows the city commission to waive the restriction that limits a person from serving on more than one board or commission at a time. So, in my opinion, you can use Rule 16 to waive that residency requirement. If the commission waives that residency requirement, it only, that waiver will not dispense of the residency requirement going forward for future board and commission appointments. It's only limited to that meeting at which it was utilized. So that's question 2. Question 3 that came up is specifically what constitutes a resident for purposes of Rule 12K. Nowhere in the commission rules, the city code of ordinances, or the city charter defines what constitutes a resident. Does it mean the same thing as Michigan election, state, income, or property tax laws, which generally, those laws, and I'll just summarize in general, there's little tweaks here and there, but in general, they basically define residency as the place where a person resides for most of the year. It's usually 180 plus, or there's 360 days or 365 days, so it's half plus 1 day in a year. So that's one way. Or can it include part-time residency? Can the definition of residency include that? So the commission can choose to define residency to include part-time residency by following Robert's Rules of Order, a preliminary motion to the main motion to appoint. However, while it would be limited to just this meeting, it's not known what unintended consequences such an action may have for future appointments. Part of my philosophy as your legal counsel is when you're debating an issue, you're always looking at the unintended consequences that could occur from your actions. Things that we don't see readily today that may happen in the future. Part-time residency, if you did go this route, what are you going to base part-time residency? Is it somebody who's here for a month out of the year, 3 months, 4 months? Part-time residency isn't static. I mean, there are people here in this community who may still have a home, but they've become more or less, they've bought a second home in another state, and they reside a length of time there. So just trying to define part-time residency, and then going forward, if you try to use that rule, a waiver of the rule to do that in the future, you're going to have all these different scenarios where somebody was appointed with 1 month who lives in Kalamazoo, another one with 4 months. It just doesn't sound like sound policy. I would not recommend that course. If you were looking at that idea of a part-time residency, I would recommend send it for staff to review, to do a more comprehensive review of such a change to see what they would propose after looking at different scenarios. And so that, if you wanted to do that, and I do a separate, after this meeting, a direction to staff to actually do a more comprehensive review if you wanted to go down that route. So I don't recommend the answer to question 3 to do that, because I just don't know what would happen in the future if you started going down that path. As attorneys, we like to tell people, you have an exception to a general rule, but you don't want to invoke the exception too many times that in essence it swallows the general rule. The exception becomes the general rule in essence. So with that, those are the 3 questions. You can use Rule 16 to waive the residency, just a flat-out waiver. There isn't a statute, ordinance, or provision that actually defines or that dispenses with the residency in this particular requirement. And so that leaves you, hopefully, with some information to decide how to approach this item.
Thank you, Attorney Leal. Questions to the attorney, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, City Attorney Leo, for that information. That was a lot of information that was not spoken upon at the last meeting, so I appreciate that. Some of the rules and requirements on that. Again, I'm going to go back and state that my reason for questioning had nothing to do with Mr. Salisbury's education, with his mindset, with his expertise. It was more about it just jumped out at me is that there's an individual that didn't live in the state was being appointed to one of our boards. I've had a few conversations with individuals. I've had time to look at the city audit that came out in July and also the actuarial report, and they're doing a great job. They are doing a great job. You take a look at some of the numbers here. When you talk about, Mr. Vicinci, you talk about us not having to put funds in for 10 years. When you look at the actuarial report from 2015, the staff has not had to put money in there. The only time that we had to put money in there was for early retirements, when we did our retirement buyout program. And I think that's great. Again, I just want Mr. Salisbury to know, and the team to know, and that committee to know, that again, it was not questioning your competency. It was the question of the policy that we as a city government has put into place. After hearing City Attorney Leal talk about the 3 questions that I posed and what he feels would be the best avenue, I do think that 2 and 3 would not be something that we'd want to do. I would like to say that with these waivers, I know I received a list of all of the commissions or of all of the committees that we have. I do know that we have difficulty in finding individuals to sit on these committees, and I am kind of putting this out there, and City Attorney Leal, tell me if this is incorrect or if I need to pull this back. I encourage every committee that is struggling to find individuals to sit on their boards to see if the waivers would pertain to them as stated in their bylaws. Thank you for that information, City Attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions for the City Attorney on this particular issue? No, all right. So let me see. I guess this is an item whether we need to have public input on. It's on our, was on consent, but we've put it on our regular agenda now. So I guess that said, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to comment on this item at this time? Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve the reappointment and waive City Commission Rules 12E and 12K. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Hess. Further discussion, Commissioner Pradel.
Sure. I think Commissioner Hoffman, you had a comment last meeting that stuck with me, but you kind of basically said if it's not broke, don't, fix it. Clearly we have an incredibly impressive track record in here, and this is an example, where I think it's definitely worth exploring, whether we're going about the right way of doing things, but in the process of it, I want to make absolutely sure that people like Mr. Salisbury that don't donate, an enormous amount of time and talent to this work know that they're deeply appreciated, and we appreciate their work as part of the city. We're tremendously blessed to have people who step forward and serve in these different capacities. 20 plus different boards and commissions that do this work and help move the city forward. And so just wanted to make sure to take a moment to thank Mr. Salisbury, but also everybody who serves on these boards and commissions for their time and talent.
Important to say. Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, and I think the flip side of that coin is, just the governance piece and making sure we're, doing what we should, right? And it's creating, those dialogues and discussions to dig into things that probably haven't been talked about in a long time. And so at the same time, if there's lack of accountability because it's just been done that way forever, then maybe we do need to look in those things. And so I think that both sides of the coins exist for a reason. So, thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Decker.
I appreciate that as well. Any other discussion? Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. So now we are at the time on our agenda when it's an opportunity for commissioner comments, and I just want to remind all my dear colleagues up here that we have a closed session that will probably not be a brief closed session. So I'll just say that, and everybody can do what the heck they want. So, commissioner comments? Okay.
It's been a long one, so.
I'll say this, there's been a lot of great conversation on important things tonight, and that certainly counts for commissioner comments in a lot of.
I got one. I think the community needs to know that a commission that can dialogue the way we do and still get shit done is a commission worth keeping.
All right, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Hess?
Really briefly. I know,
Okay.
I'm looking at the clock too.
Everybody can go ahead.
So, summertime is the time to get out. At our committee of the whole, we talked about gun violence and the community response in the Blueprint for Peace. So many things have been going on in this community. Kudos to city staff who help get those done, to neighborhoods getting out and meeting neighbors. That is how we affect the violence epidemic here. All those who participated in keeping the faith in interfaith, Urban Alliance, Big B, Michael Wilder, all of those, Peace During War, KDPS, GVI, all of you, that was a great event, but everybody in the neighborhood night outs really got to know neighbors, and that's how we take care of violence.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Other comments? All right, seeing none, then we do have an action to take, Commissioners. We need to make a motion to go into closed session to discuss an attorney-client privileged communication. And just a reminder, sometimes we go into closed session and then we come out of closed session and we take an action. We will not be doing that this evening. So if we make a motion that passes to go into closed session, then we'll be adjourning our public meeting at that time. So Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to go into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman and Commissioner Decker. Discussion? No? Okay. Clerk Bowen, please call the roll.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Thank you. Before we go into closed session, Manager Ritzma?
We'll be meeting in the third floor conference room.
Third floor conference room, okay. Thank you. City Commission is going to close session. I just want to say this. Commissioners, I really appreciate serving with everybody here. Thank you for everything you bring to the table. It really means a lot. And it is what makes a commission work, being willing to work together and share your deepest concerns and feelings. So I just appreciate that. Attorney Liel, you have jumped into the mix here. Thank you for your wonderful work. And once again, thank you for your team. You've got a great team around you, and I appreciate that very much. I love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.